You're about to watch a podcast with a guy that is deemed one of Tasmania's most dangerous criminals. A man whose life started out under the most traumatic circumstances, who then went on to live in and out of juvenile detention centres and then adult prison. The reason why I wanted to give my forethoughts to this particular podcast is simple. I encourage everyone that watches this podcast to look at it through non-judgmental eyes. When Caine's name came across my desk, I too was wary of the angle that he would be coming from in order to come on the podcast. But I think everyone deserves a chance. Everyone. And this interview is the reason I started this podcast, to share people's stories, especially stories of redemption. Caine Richardson's story is one of torment, torture, crime, sadness, anger, but also redemption, happiness, love, and life. If you can watch this interview through non-judgmental eyes, you will be inspired and uplifted about a story of a 9-year-old boy who shouldn't be alive today. So, man, here you are. We have been trying to make this happen for a while.
Yep.
First of all, what's the message? What are you here for?
Basically just to share my story and my journey, mate.
Yeah.
Statistics show not many men or women make the transition that I've made in such a short period of time with very limited support from, the supporting services that are there in place to help people like me.
Where'd your story start?
Where do we want to start? You mean
Man,
my life or?
The whole thing, man, from the start. Where were you born?
Queen Victoria Hospital in Launceston.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father met my mother while he was on leave from the Navy. They fell in love. He went back to honourably delist as he'd been in the Navy for 10 years. And, when he come home to surprise her, he was welcomed with her being pregnant with another child, house full of people, drinking, 3 kids running around. He tried to take me from my mother and, that didn't end too well. She stabbed him twice and nearly killed him.
How old were you then?
9 months, 10 months.
Yeah.
And basically, he was in intensive care for about 6 months. Once he got better, he come back and won't go into the details, but obviously it wasn't easy to take me given what happened the first time. But he managed to take me.
Why won't you go into the details?
My father passed away when I was 9. I don't mind justifying my mother stabbing him, but I wouldn't like to go into what had to take place for him to take me the second time.
Okay.
But it was obviously violence.
Yeah.
He changed my name immediately. We moved away to Georgetown, which is only half hour from Launceston. Enrolled me in schools and all that sort of stuff under Caine Donaldson, not Caine Richardson.
Yeah.
I didn't see my mother or siblings again until I was about 9 years old.
How do you feel right now talking about it?
I've come a long way in the recovery process, as they call it. Took me a long time to talk about this stuff. It's only been the last 4 years since I was 20, or 5 years, 27, since I've been able to, sit down with anyone and reflect on it and discuss the actual events that took place for me to be sitting or standing wherever I am when I'm talking about it.
Yeah, sure. And you've spoken to ABC and people like that?
Yeah.
But not long?
No, definitely
not long format. And do you talk about your story with them, or do you talk about what you're up to now?
Touch base on the beginning, but not in great detail.
Yeah, right. So you're 9 years old? What's happening?
My father had been diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was 6. He opted to do some chemo, but as most people are aware, chemotherapy can send some people into remission. It makes the situation worse than it does better. And unfortunately, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Basically, he faded away to a shadow of himself over the next 3 years. And probably, I think it was about 6 weeks before he did actually pass away. He bit the nail, as they say, and organised for me to meet my mother, who I hadn't seen in 8 years or whatever. And we met in the city park at Launceston, and she had 3 of my siblings with her. We spent a couple of hours there. I didn't engage much in the conversations that were taking place, but I was well aware that I was going to end up in her care, like once he passed away.
Right.
It was a pretty surreal experience. Like I just, I didn't even know my siblings. And my father resented my mother. He hated her with a passion. Like any time during my childhood that I'd try and bring the subject up or ask why I'm not getting birthday cards or visits or whatever, he'd just fucking fly off the handle, mate. Like, it was the worst thing in earth I could have said, you know what I mean?
So did you live in Launceston with your dad and your mum was close by, or how did that work?
Georgetown we live, which is only half hour away.
So you were pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically we left from that visit of me meeting my family, and yeah, within weeks he passed away, and yeah.
Well, you were 9 then?
9 and a little bit, yep.
Right. What happened to you? Where'd you go?
I went and, when I say I knew I was going to end up in her care, I didn't know that, but just the fact that I was meeting her when he was basically on his deathbed, it made sense to me that...
As a 9-year-old?
Yeah, that they were trying to, suggest that I was going to have more to do with her once he passed away, because there was no contact at all that whole 8 years. Like, yeah.
How was life in that time, that 9 years, that first 9 years?
Yeah, didn't have it better, mate.
Yeah.
My father doted on me, spoilt me, you know what I mean? Very hard with education and schooling and reading and chores, and, he was a person that'd been in the Navy for a long time, routine and hygiene and cleanliness and all that sort of stuff he was strict with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did he say to you at the end?
It's probably some bad advice, but yeah, I'll never forget it. Weeks leading up to his death, like we were, obviously it had been discussed that he was going to pass away. I was watching him fade away to a ghost, getting parts of his body cut off him and stuff, like his lip, his tongue, his genitals. Like there was, lots of, patches and bandages and stuff over them last 12 months. And yeah, like he said, if I can give you any advice, Caine, he goes, just doesn't matter what you do in life as long as you look good doing it. Pretty bad advice, but...
But in that moment, under chemotherapy and hospitalisation, you're pretty lucid.
Yeah.
He probably saw you as a mate.
Yeah.
Rather than... You probably lost touch with the fact,
yeah,
mentally that you're his son.
Yeah.
And you guys spent so much time together, you became mates. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
He
didn't have a woman in his life that whole 8 years.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. Just you and him.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. What would have happened, do you think, if you didn't pass?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because he resent, you hear the word hate a lot. He hated my mother. Like, he left his career, fell in love with her, all that, and come home to surprise her after honourably delisting and trying to, she already had 2 kids, and walked into that, and her response was to nearly stab him to death. Like, it's probably not something you're going to get over real quick. But yeah, I don't doubt for a second that my life wouldn't have turned out anything like it did if he hadn't have passed away. I don't blame that on my father.
Probably would have whooped your ass, right?
Oh, 100%, mate.
Yeah.
But
how old are you now?
32.
Yeah. Fucking hell. He passed away. What happened? Funeral?
Yep, funeral. Pretty intense. My mother went from being, oh, I love you at the park when I first met her, to basically just trying to take me from the funeral with no prearranged agreement. Just turned into a big fight, arguing, family swearing, and punches getting thrown and whatnot. Like,
right.
But yeah, basically it. I was a 9-year-old grieving. Like, it was all. I wouldn't say it was too much for me. It was just like, that act of trying to take me sort of made me think, oh, she loves me, you know what I mean? Like, she's missed me or whatever. Like, and yeah, when I went and returned back to my aunties, my father's sister, who, was going to take care of me and stuff after he passed, she'd already raised her 2 kids. They were adults at this stage. Like, she was married, run a business. Like, it would have been hard on her having a grieving 9-year-old. Like, it was her brother as well, so she's grieving too. Yeah, I think the stress of me, grieving, misbehaving at school, all them sorts of things just got too much. And yeah, like, I'd been screaming that I wanted to go live with my mum for weeks after my father had died. And yeah, one night she just finally had enough and said, righto, I'll call her. And bang, my mother rocked up. About 7 people in the car, 4 kids, drink driving, overloading. Just took me and what could fit in the car and off to Launceston we went.
So you're 9, 10 years old.
Still 9, yeah.
What happens?
I went from being an only child in a 3-bedroom house with someone who, you know, is very strict and has a lot of pride in routine and all them sorts of things, to a household that I'd never experienced, you know. Like, I walked into this house and by now my mother's got 5 children, so 6 once I get there. She's with my youngest brother and sister's father, Pete, who was, you know, the best stepdad I ever had over the years that I did live on and off with my mother. Yeah, as soon as we got there, you know, there was kids running around everywhere, like not just her kids, but the other people's kids that were there drinking and stuff. Like, it was an alcohol-fueled party house, basically, like every night of the week. Yeah, and that night it was just, you know, it was pretty intense. Like, there was no order at all. Like, the kids were just running amok till like midnight. Like, I was used to being in bed by 8 o'clock, you know what I mean? Like, and basically, yeah, that night we went to bed and I was just on a single bed mattress with, you know, 4 other boys on each side of me on 2 bunk beds that I'd met 6 weeks prior, but didn't know them, you know what I mean? Like, obviously they're my brothers, but yeah, and it just went from there. It took probably a week or so before I was enrolled into the school in the suburb, Waverley, where we lived. Yeah, and things just went from there pretty much.
So grade 4, grade 5.
Yeah.
You going to school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't last long, but yeah.
Right, primary school.
Yeah.
And what'd you start doing? What started happening?
You know, basically I just didn't adjust, like, to the school, you know. All my friends were in Georgetown. I'd grown up there my whole life. And yeah, Waverley's not exactly a good suburb. Neither's Georgetown, but yeah, I just didn't adjust, like, and you know, having such a close circle of people in your life from, you know, 1 to 9, and then going to moving in a house with a whole heap of strangers, going to a school with a whole heap of strangers, and everyone not doting on me over the fact my father died at that age, but just bringing it up all the time like it wasn't what I needed or wanted, that's for sure. Not from people who didn't know what we just went through that 3 years while he was dying and all them sorts of things. And yeah, it just, you know, I just got overwhelmed with it and started rebelling and wagging school, smoking, started smoking dope.
What age?
Still 9.
9.
And yeah, things just spiraled out of control. Like, you know, I met another family that lived in the suburb. Their family was identical to ours, 6 kids, all roughly the same age, 5 boys, 1 girl, just like us. Our families become really close and are still really close to this day. You know, I know they won't mind me saying, but unfortunately, you know, we are 2 of the most well-known crime families, so to speak. But yeah, several of us have, you know, we've all done bad things, we've all done good things with our lives, so to speak.
Where's your mum now?
I don't actually know. I know she lives in Launceston.
Okay. Last time you saw her? You're 32 now?
Yep. Probably, I'd have to be 5 or 6 years.
Okay. So there you are, 9, turning 10, smoking.
Yeah.
Marijuana, drinking, I'm suspecting.
Yep.
And going to school, not going to school.
Yeah, and things just, yeah, they just spiraled out of control in the sense that, you know, once the drugs come into play and I started meeting as I said, I met this other family and we all become friends, and one of the other boys who's only 13 days younger than me, you know, we become best mates and, you know, started going into town on buses and just stealing things for school. And I just started out like any normal kid. You don't steal nothing of significance until you realise you can, basically. And yeah, things just went from there. So stealing things in town, little things, and then all of a sudden we were stealing, creeping into office buildings, not just going into shops and trying to find people's purses and jewellery, value, whatever.
Leveling up quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, pretty much what happened was I hadn't actually been caught doing anything wrong at this stage. Like, obviously at home I was getting in trouble for coming home with backpacks full of, all these cool pens and stationery for school, and my mother wanted to know where it all come from, and I'm making up excuses, whatever. And then, one night, myself, my 2 older brothers, and about 8 of our friends, we used to break into the Waverley Hall, which is right next to the Waverley School. And, the police, we'd been breaking in there for weeks. And one night, unfortunately, the police come and, everyone got away except for me. And, they arrested me, obviously, tried to, just not hurting me significantly, but just trying to rough me up and ask me who the other kids were. We need to, put a stop to this, whatever. And I wouldn't tell them. But long story short, they took me home, which was literally 80 metres away. And, when we got there, my siblings were already back there, like my elder brothers. And, they explained to my stepfather and my mother what had taken place. And basically they tried to get me to be honest and explain who the other kids were, and I wouldn't do that. Like, my brothers were standing there watching on with fear in their eyes, like, please don't tell them that we were there. Like, and basically my mother walked out of the room with this cop and come back in, and he sat down in front of me and was just like, I'm just going to ask you one more time, Caine, like, who was with you? And before I could finish saying, I'm not going to tell you, he's ripped me off the couch, thrown me on the ground, the whole restraint thing, knee in the throat, trying to twist my arm up on my back. I just full flipped out. No one but my father had ever laid a hand on me at this stage, so I didn't go down too well. And this went on for probably 90 seconds of me just screaming at the top of my lungs, fighting as best I could with a grown man, obviously.
Uniform police officer.
Yeah. And my mother, intervened after about 90 seconds because she clearly worked out I wasn't going to say anything, and I was just getting hurt. And basically that's where, that incident right there basically shaped the rest of, the last 18, 19 years of my life relationship with police, unfortunately. And started with that was the first time I ran away from home, was then exposed to other drugs, was exposed to more serious crime.
Are you 10 yet?
By now, would have been about 10, And, went weeks on end without going to school, all that sort of stuff. And when I finally did go home, at this stage, I'd been accompanying other, not adults, but 16, 17, 18-year-olds stealing vehicles, waiting in the car to hit the horn while they break into houses, all these sorts of things. And in my opinion now, it was just, without me going home and being honest, but even if I did go home and be honest, I don't think my mother would have been able to sort the help that would have been needed to take me away from keeping on doing that.
Because we're talking about, like, year 2000.
Yeah.
About then?
Yeah.
99, 2000, 2001, 2002. Yeah. Launceston.
Yeah.
Pretty rough.
Yeah. I probably skipped the part where, the household wasn't exactly, like the violence I seen in that house in them first few weeks was, immeasurable. Like, my mother's like, she's got 5 sons. One of my brothers is in Ukraine training with UFC bantamweight Peter Yan right now.
Right.
My eldest brother held the middleweight Australian MMA title for months. He had 9 fights or something like that and only lost once. I've fought boxing and had one MMA fight myself. Basically what I'm saying is we all get our genetics from our mother.
Get it.
Like, she was not a power lifter but a weightlifter in junior high school. And she broke records as a junior. Like, she was a machine. Like, she used to punch on with these men like I've never seen anything like it, to be honest. And that all, naturally fueled my not wanting to be at the house. And it just wasn't an environment where you go from being really good, not bullied, but made do the right thing by a parent, to going into a household where you can stay up till midnight. other adults are giving you alcohol, letting you take drawers of cigarettes. You're 9, 10 years old. Like,
It's going to end badly.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way out of that.
No.
Mm.
And yeah, basically once I went home after that few weeks of running away, obviously I got flogged for it and was told that I'd be going back to school, and then if I ran away again, I'd go to a foster home, all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And I didn't want to go to a foster home given this was what my real home was like. I was terrified of going to some other home because I'm thinking, oh, what's that going to be like? Like, this is bad enough. And yeah, basically when I went back to school, like, once again, I don't blame my teacher or anyone for this, but like, you know, because I was absent for so long, basically when I come back, all the kids in my class wanted to know why I'd just come to school for 6 or 8 weeks and then all of a sudden I was gone for 4 and then back again. And yeah, it was basically outlined to them that, you know, my father had died. That's why I moved here, rah, rah, rah. And that just, you know, like having that put on me in front of my whole class, like I just, you know, jumped up, ran out, was crying, whatever. And yeah, later that day, made the very poor and not so nice decision to steal my teacher's handbag. And yeah, it was the first time I ever had a real taste of money. There was $500 or $600 in the handbag. Knew immediately, this was only 2 days after I went back to school, knew immediately that I wouldn't be able to go home, so I had to run away from home again. And yeah, things pretty much spiraled really out of control after that because I knew I couldn't go home. Like, I knew I was going to be flogged.
Do you remember what you did with that money?
Yeah, paid. I went to these older people's house that I knew, and basically they threatened if I didn't give them half of it, they'd dob me in. So I'll give them half of it and then, yeah, use the rest to buy cigarettes. I think I bought 2 hats and a couple of deals of dope. Money was gone.
Back in the day when smokes were $6, $7 a pack.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically after that, man, yeah, me and my best mate from the other family that I explained about earlier, yeah, he ran away from home with me. We both went to the same school, so he didn't go to school either. We were actually staying at the school and under his house, like, because it had like a bit under, like a bungalow or whatever you want to call it. And this went on for probably 3 months. And in that 3 months, you know, we were being taught how to steal cars ourselves, participating in burglaries and people smashing in shops and stealing stuff and all this sort of crap. And yeah, basically I was walking down the road. Me and him were walking down the road one night at about 2 a.m. and like we both had backpacks with screwdrivers and little jimmy bars and scissors and all this stuff. And yeah, he literally just walked up this driveway to do a piss, and yeah, this cop car just come out of nowhere, bang, arrested me, searched the bag, everything that was in there. I was charged with several car thefts, several burnings of vehicles, couple of burglaries, heap of stealings, trespasses, or just heaps of random shit. Like, obviously very serious, but you know, nothing in comparison to what would take place later in my life. But I think I was 4 days over 11. So
I was going to say how old because I want to keep track of your timeline.
Yeah, I was 4 days over 11 when I first went to Ashlands.
You got a good memory, man.
It's only because I'm writing my book. Trust me, I've got a terrible memory.
Gotcha.
The only things that really stand out in my life are, you know, violence, trauma, shit that's extremely funny or has to be very memorable. Yeah, I actually have a terrible memory.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're putting it all together now in a book.
Yeah.
Epic.
Yeah.
First time arrested.
Yeah.
Proper.
Yeah.
Proper arrested.
Yeah.
Took you into the cop shop.
Yeah.
You're 11 in the cop shop. What do you think?
It was quite strange, actually. Like, you know, they're buying me cans of Coke. One of them give me like, you know what a hacky sack is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm up and down this hallway, kicking around this hacky sack and just, yeah, they were just grooming me, trying to, you know, they
Get
were like,
info?
yeah, they basically said, we know someone else was with you. Police reports from people in the suburb saying there was 2 youths breaking into vehicles. Who was your mate? All that sort of stuff. Naturally, I wouldn't tell them. And yeah, because of the stuff that was in my bag, which was car CD players, sunglasses, just random things that I've been taking out of people's cars as a
It ties you to
11-year-old.
things, yeah?
Yeah,
It ties you to
I
crime.
ended up with about 40 charges, and they basically said, "Oh, look, we can't," and I wouldn't agree to be bailed back to my mother's house because I knew that was a hiding in waiting for me. So I was just like, no, I don't want to go back there. Can't be bailed there. And they were like, well, give us another address. Didn't have another address, and that basically put me before the court. They weren't going to give me police bail anyway. They made that clear. But I think if I'd have said I was going back to my mother's, given they knew the relationship, cops had been to the house half a dozen times over that last 6-7 months, they probably would have bailed me back there. But yeah, I wouldn't agree to go there. And was put before the courts. They refused me bail, and within an hour I was at Ashley's.
Yeah, right. This is where it gets real, right?
100%, mate.
Yeah. Although it's already been very real.
Yeah.
And you're 11. Yeah, I've read about it, but I want you to lay it down,
It's really hard to explain to people, to be honest. Like, you can't. It's so hard to understand. Like, obviously, parents belt their children. They do the wrong thing. They belt their children. Some people, will smack other people's children or grab them and put them in headlocks or whatever it is if it's necessary. You know what I mean? But the shit that used to go on out there, like, it makes you wonder, like, I have insight now into reports and investigations and things that are going on due to my involvement with the Royal Commission and these sorts of things. And back then, even up until like 2007, 8, 9, the staff out there didn't even have to have a working with vulnerable children card.
Gotcha.
They hardly ran a police check on them. These could be victims of abuse themselves. They could be interstate sex offenders. There's no telling because there's no vetting process. Like, they don't actually. They basically just come in, do a 6-week induction, and if they tick all the boxes, they're on board. And
times have changed.
Thankfully, yeah.
I've got to have a working with vulnerable people check just to work with martial arts with people.
100%.
Yeah, and they check on it.
Yep.
Ashley's, man.
Yeah, so
they took you out there in a car, in a vehicle, or you're on a bus? What's going on?
No, just a standard vehicle. Platinum Security used to do all the transports to and from Ashley's, like for court, doctors, anything like that. Basically, spent 40 minutes or so in the cells, and then half-hour trip to Ashley's. And when I first went to Ashley's, like the admission process was basically walk in, give them your name. They'd have a form saying what you're there for, when your next court date is, and they'd basically just write all that down, strip you naked. Someone would stand there. They have like a bucket in one hand with like knit and scabies cream in it, like they used to call it, and they basically just grab, similar to a paintbrush, and literally just make you either put your hands up or put your hands on the wall while you're naked. And then, spread your ass cheeks, spread it all up and down, your ass crack, under your nuts, all over your genitals. Stung like fuck too, mind you. Sorry for swearing.
That's fine.
All up under your armpits. Basically, and then throw you straight in the shower, bring you back out, dress you, and you'd go straight into a 72-hour mandatory lockdown for an observation period where they'd lock you in a cell that had one little square window, a mattress and a suicide blanket. And that was your induction. No toilet, no sink, nothing.
So this is your story, right?
100%.
I want you to be able to speak freely about what you've been through.
Yeah.
You don't need to say sorry for swearing or anything else you're about to say.
No, I appreciate it.
So go for it. I want this story to hopefully get out to parents and families and youth. It's hard to get in touch with the youth though, because they're off, bro.
Yeah,
they're on TikTok. They're out in the streets. They're out doing their thing. They're not really looking up podcasts. Right.
The problem is there's people out there that, people like me, like I'm not saying I'm the best looking guy in the world, but people like me that have all their teeth in their head, they do have a vocabulary and they can string sentences together. get out there glorifying crime and drugs and violence
Right.
and not going to school and not doing all these things, when the reality is we should be the ones taking the lead and making sure that these young kids don't look up to people like us, because that's the only way to stop it. Like, if they've got someone that they look at like they've got a good life, they have everything I want, that's all good and well, but how'd that person get that? Like, you can't look up to someone that's just got all these things that they've taken from someone else or they've done crime to get, because naturally they're not going to go, all right, I'll go and work for 3 years so I can have all that, when he just took it in a matter of minutes. Like,
it's a good message.
I wish it was the message I got when I was little, but
no, you didn't.
Yeah.
So you're 11 years old. Ashley's,
Yep.
stripped down, treated like a dog. And what are you, in a room on your own? With a bunch
concrete
of people?
cell for the first 3 days. Yeah, back then it was mandatory. Like, I don't know why, because there was nowhere else to house you. Like, even if you did try and hang yourself or slit your wrist, if anything happened in that observation period, there was nowhere else. There was only one building when I first went to Ashley's. It was called the New Wing, and it housed up to 75 people. When I say people, that's because you'd have someone there, me being the youngest that just turned 11, in a building and rooms with people up to the age of 22. So, like, it wasn't just children.
Right.
After that 3-day period, you'd be brought out of the cell. Basically, it used to be like an office. It was an L-shaped building, and the office was on the corner. TV room, dining room, games room, every cell up that corridor. So, like, just picture one big corridor, cells on each side, and 3 different cells at the ends.
Barred cells or with a door?
Doors.
What am I picturing?
Yep,
Okay.
doors. Windows with bars on them on the outside.
Okay.
But, yeah, just normal big solid doors to get in and out of there.
And you got a window to, like, the outside world with a bit of sunlight, or what's happening there?
Yeah, windows, just normal windows, obviously reinforced ones you can't break.
Yeah.
And
you're in a cell on your own?
No.
Right.
Only for your observation period.
Okay.
There was like 3 time-out cells beside the office before the corridor started, and they were just, for that very reason, they were the observation cells or punishment cells when you do something wrong, have a fight or whatever. When I come out after that 3-day observation period, you basically just stand at the front of the office. All the other kids are around, kids. And, yeah, they basically just run you through the routine. They give you this little pamphlet that explains that you have to get up at 7 a.m. You'll be required to take your medication at this time, food, or just basically the rundown of how your days will go. And, yeah, for me personally, straight after that process, I was walked halfway up this hallway, taken into a room. There was like 12 other boys in there, and there's only like 6 or 7 or maybe 8 beds in there. So I'm looking around thinking, what's going on here? But I didn't realise they were just in there because the cells are left open all day and you can just walk around the whole building, do as you please. They actually weren't all in that cell. And, yeah, basically the officer just turned around to me and said, do you recognise any of these people? And I've looked around and, like, I recognised 2 of them. I knew them from the outside. And I'm like, oh, yeah. He's like, do you have any problems with anyone in this room? And I was like, nah. He's like, all right, this is where you'll be sleeping. And just handed me, like, a big black garbage bag with, like, a pillow and a doona and a pillow slip and doona cover in it. And, yeah, just walked off. That was that. And I'm just like, I'm in a room with blokes that are, like, 21 years old, people that are 14, 15, but there was no other kid in there my age. Like, naturally, I just, set my stuff up on my bed and just sat there for a while. And the boys that I did know finished talking and come over and just sort of, rubbed me on the head, told me, it's all right, don't worry, boy, nothing goes on here. Just trying to put me at ease because obviously I would have looked scared. I was 11 years old. And, yeah, it wouldn't have been days, you know what I mean? Like, before, I had a quick reality change that it wasn't all right and, yeah, that I wasn't going to be all right. Yeah, you just, all day back then there was no programs, there was nothing. Like, you'd just get let out of your cell. There was table tennis table, old PS1, all that sort of crap in the games room down the end, and a TV room that had like 30 plastic chairs in it, and that was it. Like there was nothing. Like there was no therapeutic services. There was no going to school. None of this sort of stuff in that initial period.
So you're saying that because that happens now?
Yeah, 100%.
That's all going on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically it wouldn't have been the second or third day, and yeah, you know, we got locked in our cell, and like I said, I didn't know 5 or 6 of the boys that I was locked in there with, and yeah, I was abused for the first time. And I forgot to add, by now, my other mate who was walking up the street with me had also been locked up. He was in the observation cell like 2 days after I come out of it. And he'd been to Ashley's before. That was the thing I forgot to add as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, after I was abused, you know, I insisted on getting in there to see Malcolm, and yeah, they ended up letting me in there to talk to him, and basically left me there for about 5 minutes, and I explained to him what had happened, and he just shrugged his shoulders and goes, that's just what it's like. I'm like, fucking what? Like, I can't believe it just come out of your mouth. Like, and yeah, basically I tried to move cells. You know, I didn't want to be in that cell anymore. That wasn't answered with anything other than, you know, you committed a crime. We're not here to be at your leisure and pleasure, Caine. Like, go back to your room. Like, go play table tennis. Go, just piss off. You know what I mean? Like,
who abused you?
Other detainees to start with. Yeah. And after that, like, you know, obviously I started sort of, you know, I didn't know how to respond. Like, I didn't know what else to do. Like, I just explained to them that shit had happened to me, and they were just like, piss off. Like, they didn't care. And I knew, obviously, because while they were trying to hurt me and do the things to me, I was pleading for it not to happen. Like, I knew there was no going back to my cell and saying, please don't do that again. Like, because that was just pointless. And yeah, I just tried to and wanted to try and fit in and, you know, not be that person that was having that happen to them. You know what I mean? I ended up remaining in that cell for probably 4 weeks. And the way that Ashley's used to work, they used to, like most places, work in shifts. And yeah, this really lovely lady that probably still works there to this day, I don't know, come on shift, and, you know, basically she took a real liking to me and was just like, oh, I've never seen you before, you know, like, when did you get here? And like, after about a week, when I sort of gauged that she wasn't like all the other staff, I approached her and explained to her what had happened to me, and, you know, stuff had happened to my mate in this 4-week gap, like, just since we'd been there. And yeah, within days, like, just out of nowhere, we were just ripped out of the new wing, which is the only building on site that detainees of the state were held in at this point. Yeah, that she'd, you know, put her foot down massively and said, like, you know, you're leaving children with grown men, like, there's people in here that are charged with sex offences and violent crimes. Like, you can't leave a vulnerable 11-year-old with them unsupervised for overnight, hours on end, like. And yeah, we basically walked out of the new wing, and as we walked out onto the, like, footpath that led away from the building, there used to be a massive dining room and office block, but that wasn't part of what the detainees had anything to do with, only for special events, like if we had centre-wide barbecues or all the staff were on site when there wasn't enough people, too many people for the main dining room in the new wing, we'd go over there. And yeah, as we were walking towards it, it was the middle of winter and it was real foggy out there, like Darran, and we see these, like, you know, like what they have on construction sites, the wreck air hire containers, and they turn them into offices and lunchrooms for
shipping container sort of thing.
Yeah, that are prefabbed and turned into office rooms and all that sort of stuff for work sites. And there's about 8 or 9 of them just in the middle of the paddock. And we've been walked over there. There's about 9 of us in total. Problem was, there was me and my 2 mates, who we were all 11, and the other 5 or 6 detainees that were coming with us were all sex offenders. They were also being removed for their protection. Doesn't make sense, I know. And, yeah, we were all just walked over there. And basically when we got there, it was explained to us that there might have been 10 because there was 6 rooms, 1 container, 6 containers for rooms, like that we'd be sleeping in, 1 container for toilets, and 1 container that had showers, washing machines, dryers, all that sort of stuff, and 1 for staff. Us 3 11-year-olds had to triple up initially, just in a shipping container no bigger than this room. No toilet, no sink, no nothing like that, just steel bed frames, bedding. That was it. Yeah, we basically went through a new, not an induction phase, but just how things would go for us from here on in, having been moved from the new wing. Yeah, it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, they just isolated us worse than what we had been. We were now only with sex offenders. Like, we really actually didn't know that until later on, like a couple of weeks later on, when it was explained to us that the other boys, because we were like, you know, these other boys are taking our desserts, they're doing this, they're doing that. What the fuck's going on? Why are we still in the same position we were in before? And they're like, oh, they're also here for their protection. Why? We're like, oh, well, you know, they're all sex offenders. Great. And then as soon as...
Did you realise, as an 11-year-old, how do you fathom that? What's a sex offender?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
We were just like, all we thought was rapist. That's the only word that really, you know, back then we wouldn't be able to distinguish between a child sex offender or... Yeah. And...
This lady that came to help you...
Yeah.
Sort of fucked up.
I think the way that it was looked at was, we can't just take the children out of here. We've got to be seen to be removing all vulnerable people from that position.
It sounds like a lack of resources.
Oh, 100%. We're in shipping containers.
Yeah, at least they could have separated those. You guys from the sex offenders.
Different walk groups, anything, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not the way it worked. And basically for the next... It pretty much started off the chain of events to what Ashley's is now, like it's structurally.
Gotcha.
Because as soon as we were abused again, this time we went to the same woman and explained, and she was, I don't know why, but that's what I mean. I'd been there for four or so weeks before she come into New Wing, and I was like, took a liking to me. So I was like, oh, you know, like, why hasn't she been here all the time? And then we learned that the worst kids of Ashley's were actually being housed in the south. We didn't know that.
You didn't even know they existed?
No.
Right.
They called it Ashley South. There was like 12 of them, 15 of them. And they were like our state's worst youth that couldn't be kept at the New Wing because of security measures weren't strong enough basically to house them there. They needed to be locked in. Like they couldn't just... Because basically at the New Wing, as soon as the doors open, you're off. Highway's 100 metres away and there's no fences, there's nothing.
I've heard that.
Yeah, that's what it used to be like. And yeah, she'd been working down there. And that's why when I confronted her and explained to her what had happened to us in the New Wing, she's gone and put all these things in place, whatnot. But then she's back down there working for another 3 months or 10 weeks or whatever it was. So when she's come back and we've spotted her again, you know, we've all ran to her like for our lives, like this is what's happening, rah, rah, rah. Immediately. And when I say immediately, I mean, it wouldn't have been a week, like, and there was construction people 100 metres from us building new units. Like she was actually, you know, as much as the move to get us out of the New Wing failed because we were then isolated with just sex offenders.
Yeah, I got you now.
It was still, you know, every time she realised that things were being done like this, she'd do something about it. Like she was senior management when I left, so she'd be, if she's not there now, I don't know, but if she is, she'd be either the boss or right beside him because she was senior management when I left. But yeah.
So she came in and she got the construction going and got the resources happening.
Yep.
And you guys got separated. Am I right?
Pretty much.
And you're okay from that point?
For the initial period, yeah. Like, it was...
What are you thinking about? Are you trying not to say some things, or are you trying to remember?
I just... You can't, or I can't. I know some people do. They gauge severity of abuse one way or another. They, this is worse than that, or this. And, I feel now, looking back, that us complaining about the abuse and stuff is what sort of, the fact that we complained about it being abused by detainees and nothing was being done about it. In a sense, when I look back and think about it, it's what fueled the abuse from the staff. Like, they realised that no one gives a fuck. Like, they don't care what we say happens to us. No one's going to go, it's our job to stop that. That's wrong. That's criminal. These are children. Like, they just
saw an opportunity.
Pretty much. Like, it fueled it, if anything. Like, us trying to speak up and get help to be stopped from being raped and abused and tortured and bashed and all this shit. Like, it fueled it. You know what I mean? Like, they looked at it like, if they can do it, so can we. Like, if we're not going to stop the other detainees from doing it? It wasn't our doing that they got moved away, and now we have to break up our staff and staff here, staff there. Like, they'd still be here. Like, and yeah, from pretty much as soon as we were separated from the sex offenders, all of a sudden, now we're being taken off site. Now we're allowed to go on bushwalking trips, camping trips. We're going fishing. We're doing, like, there was, I won't deny there was times when certain staff did take us off site properly, where everyone knew about it and we were actually going to go caving or camping or whatever it was. But definitely not as many times as we were just taken out of our rooms and told that we're going somewhere amazing, only to be taken off site to be abused. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. How old are you there? You're still 11?
11, 12.
12.
Yeah. And no, I would have still been 11, because the first time I went to Ashley's, I think I'd done 4 or 5 months. And at this point, we don't trust this woman. That was the big thing that sort of fucked us for a lot of years, was that breach of trust. Like, they were all, not all, but it was a pack mentality out there, you know what I mean? The nepotism is rampant. Like, that place back then was run by 2 or 3 families and their closest friends. There was none of this 50 people apply to work and the 12 best ones get the job. 50 people could apply to work and 3 of them would get the job. Only the people, because just like people used to do in the prison, they would have done it back then, certainly, because the nepotism was fucking rampant. Like, they ran that place. They would do overtime, double time to make sure that they're all making the most amount of money, you know what I mean? Like, and once that trust was broken, like, by being abused by the staff, we were fucked. Do you know what I mean? Who do we go to? What do we say? Like,
you're trapped.
Yeah, pretty much.
What's with the Royal Commission you said before?
The Royal Commission was a Royal Commission into child sexual abuse in government-run institutions or settings.
Done and dusted.
The Royal Commission is, yeah. There's now a Commission of Inquiry, which has the power to use people's testimony and statements and evidence that they've given to charge offenders without naming or using the people that have made the allegations. Basically, they have the power to determine whether or not the evidence is strong enough on the basis upon which they have it, in document form or verbal form or recorded form. And yeah, they can also, they have a lot of other powers as well that the Royal Commission didn't have. Basically, all that come because of the Royal Commission saying, like, this is rampant, that's got to stop, this is systemic. Like, there's no just throwing a document in and going, that's got to end, because it's entrenched in their behaviours. The people that run the place, like, you can't. Psychology is a dangerous thing when you're talking pack mentality. Everyone's livelihood, their income, everything revolves around these behaviours. And if these behaviours are ripped away from them and they're brought undone for doing the wrong thing, there goes their income, there goes their family.
So they'll fight for it.
Oh, 100%. They'll lie for it. Like, they'll do anything. Like,
yeah. Did you play a part in that Royal Commission?
Yep.
Mm.
I wrote a 10-page statutory declaration for the Royal Commission.
And how did you feel when you were writing that? Was it rage, happiness, sadness, emptiness? Were you angry?
I left a lot out simply because I'd had a pretty bad experience 7, 8 years prior when they done what was called the abuse in state care payouts. It was basically the same thing, promising victims that if they come forward and detail their abuse, that they'll be compensated, and recommendations will be made, things will be put in place, there'll be change, all this sort of stuff. And due to my experience that first time, I was pretty hesitant to say the absolute truth, because I just honestly thought I'd get the same response that I got last time.
Which was?
Well, what happened was they come into the prison, and because there was like tens of thousands of men and women Australia-wide, like there was hundreds of millions of dollars paid out during that abuse in state care stuff. And when they come to the prison,
Risdon.
Yep. People were asked to come up and speak to them, to, talk about making their claim, giving their evidence, all that sort of stuff. I went up there after having spoken to lawyers and whatnot and been advised that it was all fine, everything, go do it. It's the best thing, for the kids of the future and all that sort of shit. And I went up there and done it. And I don't know what they were thinking about, why they were taking my name and date of birth and all that sort of shit. But I sat there for hours and detailed things that I can categorically guarantee no one else would have outlined that used to take place and did take place at Ashley's. And they're like, oh, yep, no worries, Mr. Richardson. We're going to go away and we'll come back in a couple of days. We'll let you know what your options are. And I'm, righto, this must just be the way it works, whatever. I'm thinking in my head, though, like, after everything I just told you, that's all you've got to say. We're going to go away and come back in a couple of days. Like, a couple of days went by. I got called up there, back up to the processing, and there was only one of them there this time. There was like 4 of them when we were having this meeting. And I walked in and I went to sit down. He goes, oh, look, mate, we don't need to sit down. We need to discuss something. It's only going to be quick. And I'm like, oh, yeah, what's that? He goes, oh, look, man, like, we were just so overwhelmed with everything that you told us. We completely overlooked your ineligibility. And I said, fucking what? And he's like, oh, look, mate, you had to be born before the 1st of January 1985 to make a claim. And I just fucking, I skitzed. I smashed everything off the table, and I just said, I should cave you. Like, I said, so you're standing here telling me that because I was 11 years old, locked up with up to 22-year-olds being raped and abused, it's all right because I wasn't born before the 1st of January 1985. He goes, oh, look, mate, that's not what I'm saying. I said, that's exactly what you're fucking saying. Like, you had to be born before the 1st of January 1985 to be entitled to this compensation or this recognition of apology, that honestly ruined my mind and my core beliefs for a very long time. Like,
how old were you then?
22, 23. And
we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just, you asked about the Royal Commission, so I'm just explaining. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
Your first time in Ashley.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back to
no worries.
That moment.
Yeah.
You're in Ashley's, you're completely trapped.
Yeah.
You got out?
Yep.
After the first time there?
Yep.
Got released?
Yep. Got sentenced, got released.
Got released. You knew that time was coming, or was it you just wake up one day and said, you're out?
I kept appearing in court every 28 or so days for the 4 or 5 months I was there. And then, finally one day I had a phone call with my lawyer and he said, oh, look, I want to know how you plead to the charges. And, me mates at that point had basically said, trust me, Caine, plead guilty to everything, you'll get out. Righto. Pled guilty to everything. Got out. As soon as I went to court for sentencing, they said, "Yeah, guilty on all charges. He's already done this long. This is what's happened while he's been there." Fucking rah, rah, rah. I was hospitalised. I skipped that part, sorry, earlier. Three or 4 days after I got out of the observation cell, I was rushed to the Darran hospital. I had to get like 7 stitches in my temple. Yeah, and they basically released me then and there. And yeah, by now my family had moved from Waverley to Riverside. Yep, Riverside. Yeah.
So you were reconnected with your family?
I never spoke to anyone from my family the whole time I was in Ashley's, but yeah, got out and
You got dropped off there.
Yeah.
And you're back in the real world.
Yep.
Having experienced what you've experienced.
Yeah.
And you're 13, 12, 13? 12?
Still 11.
Still 11.
Yeah.
And what?
Just
culture shock. You must have been just like angry.
Yeah. My trust in
everyone,
people had been ripped away from me, that's for sure. Like
starting with the copper that was on your neck.
Yeah. I just, deep down, I never wanted to go back there, obviously. Like, that was the last place I ever wanted to step foot in again. And I promised and swore to my mother that I'd do the right thing and do this and do that. And I did for a few weeks. I ended up enrolling in Trevelyan Primary School, which was just up the road from where we lived. Probably silly mistake, given the 2 schools I'd been to previously, to go to a school in that suburb. Naturally, it's going to be with a bunch of rich kids, and all that. But yeah, once again, I didn't quite adapt. I was smoking dope immediately, like as soon as I got out.
You didn't have access to dope in Ashley's at all?
Oh, yeah.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
So you just back on the train, yeah.
Yeah. But we were 11. Unless we had money, we weren't getting it. Not in Ashley's anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, smoking dope and cigarettes immediately when I got out. And yeah, basically my mate got out, and the one from the other family that I was speaking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, after probably 4 weeks of going to school, and I was still stealing things going into town and all that stuff. Like, I didn't go back to the kids that had taught us to steal cars and all them sorts of things, but I was still doing criminal things, like, because after having money and seeing how easy it is and all them sorts of things, it was so hard to just go back to having nothing and doing what normal children do. And in a sad way, I think being bashed and being abused and all them things, it sort of reinforces, well, it did for me anyway, it reinforced my right to just take things when I want them, because that's what happened to me. Like, no one, you know what I mean? Like, I know that's a fucking poor attitude, but at 11 years old, it's pretty hard to comprehend exactly what's going on with your emotions. And, I hadn't, apart from, I never once said to any of the staff at Ashley's at this point that we'd been raped, only that we'd been picked on, bashed, and things like that. We couldn't, the thought of telling someone that had happened to us wasn't, it wasn't on the agenda at that stage, like, because we're 11 years old and we're all really proud kids. Like, I know we're only 11, but we were bad children to start with, in the sense that trust and not talking to the police and not dobbing on people and all that was already entrenched in us by older kids, you know what I mean? Like,
which is part of the systemic behaviour,
100%.
which is part of how they keep you guys quiet.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically once Malcolm got out, yeah, we reconnected, and, he wanted to move in with us. My mother wouldn't let him, naturally. I ended up running away from home and not going back to school again. All the same sort of stuff, back stealing cars to sleep in them and not having anywhere to live. We'd just steal cars and drive them around and sleep in them. And then, yeah, things, it's funny because, like, I think back about these older criminals that I used to hang around at that age, and, like, I still speak to some of them now, but I don't even know if they remember the things that they used to encourage and help and let me do. But I'd never do that to a child. Do you know what I mean? Like, And yeah, it wasn't long before we were both hanging back around these people. And, you know, the whole being homeless and wanting to be around criminals and this stuff, they don't sleep. When you're 11 years old, it's not easy to stay awake a full night, let alone days on end. So naturally we were introduced to drugs, first by snorting and drinking and things like that. And then obviously a year or two later, worse. But yeah.
What kind of drugs?
Amphetamines, gear.
Intravenous?
No, I didn't inject until I was 13, but yeah, just snorting it and drinking it and having it in talios and swallowing it and all that sort of stuff.
Just keep you up for days.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like, you know, at 11, 12 years old, by now I'm quite literally hanging around with our states, or some of our states' worst offenders, like for car thefts, burglaries, stealing safes, guns, anything. You know what I mean?
No, I don't, but I can hear you.
The whole shoplifting and stealing your teacher's purse, all that shit's fucking, that's done and dusted now. Like, and the way I look back at it is, we've been to Ashley's, we'd been abused, everyone knew what had happened to us, and no one got in trouble for it. So clearly we didn't rat them out. All these sorts of things sort of added to our credibility that we were going to end up eventually being who we become. You know, well, that's how I look at it. That's how these older people were looking at it. Like, if they're going to keep their mouth shut over that, they're not going to tell them anything about anything. Like, and yeah, basically, 11, 12 years old, we were, you know, literally being sat down, taught how to case jobs, like how to walk into businesses and check where the locks are on the door, make sure you know where the sensors are, try and gauge where you can get in if you're behind shelves and racks and the sensor can't, like, just anything like that was criminal. It was being pushed upon us and we were being taught it, you know what I mean? And yeah, things just, once again, just kept spiraling, you know, like as soon as the drugs become an issue, so did the paranoia, carrying weapons, violence, you know, like, and at that age, I know it's hard to fathom, but trust me, there's 11, 12-year-olds in our state now and interstate that are doing all these things I'm talking about. It's just that it's like no one takes it as seriously as they should be, that these kids are the next, you know, next me and the next him and them, and like, yeah.
If they make it.
Yeah, that too. I've had several friends pass away between then and now, like all different reasons: suicides, overdoses, car accidents, like bashed to death, all sorts of things. Like, yeah, I didn't last long, like out. I think it was probably 12 weeks, 3 months. First 4 weeks at school, doing the right thing, whatever. And, you know, I don't blame my mate for being a bad influence, because to be blatantly honest, over our life, I've most definitely influenced him in much worse ways to do much worse things than run away from home and do what we've been doing at this stage. But, yeah, back to Ashley's, and by now they were weeks away from finishing the new unit or new units. They built a unit called Huon and a unit called Quamby. And basically they were super maximum units. They each held 15 detainees. Not much had changed, in the sense that, you know, at this point they were still housing girls with boys.
Right.
Like, and yeah, all the stuff that I was referring to before about being taken off property and all that, that was all still there. Like, there was none of this, like, you know, it blows my mind, like, how not everyone that worked there was bad, you know what I mean? Like, there was no, when I look back at it, how could they not tell what was happening? Like, it's like they did know and they just didn't want to do anything about it. Or, you know, like I said, that nepotism, the being bullied out of their workplace if they try and intervene or if they suggest that this should be done or that should be done. They'd be getting you're not in charge. You're a shit kicker. Like, we run this shit here, right? You know what I mean? We've been doing this for years, like decades. Like, and yeah, you know, by this stage, I was slowly becoming who I am today. You know, I know that sounds strange given I was only 12, 13 years old, but yeah, that second time was probably much worse than the first time, to be honest.
Right.
Definitely had the biggest impact on me.
They saw you coming.
100%.
They knew of you. They knew you were vulnerable.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's weird, you know, because the kids that were not like us, even if they were a little bit older, if they weren't rebellious or, you know, didn't speak up and get cheeky and mouthy and have to be dragged back to their cells once a fortnight because they didn't want to go to their rooms, or not that I know for certain, but I know most of the kids that used to get taken off site, and it was always the kids that, you know, were already bad and naughty. Like, it wasn't the kids that were there because they'd done something wrong and they're sitting there shitting themselves the whole time. It was us kids that were adjusting to being there, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
Catch you.
Yeah, like, and it was just fucking rampant. Like, that's the only way to explain it. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's things that happen that you can't put your finger on it. Like, because I think back to it and I think there's still so many good people that work there. That's the thing that always I come back to. Like, you can't, that's a lie. You can bully someone out of their morals. I know that firsthand. But in an environment like that, we're not talking prison. We're not talking someone caving your head in because you don't agree with what the other three people in the room want. We're talking about losing your job. Like, it's not the end of the fucking world to stop children from being raped, tortured, abused, and fucking basically kidnapped to be taken away from somewhere they're meant to be safe and being looked after. That's not real, you know what I mean? Losing your jobs, like, most people would take that as a badge of honour, wouldn't you think? Like, I'd lose my job any day of the week for the rest of my life if I was going to stop a child from being abused by anyone under any circumstance. I agree children need to be smacked and thrown in their room and all that sort of shit. There's stuff taken from them when they're not, whatever. But the shit that used to go on out there, like, yeah, losing your job should be the last of their concerns, in my opinion. Like, and it wasn't. If anything, that was top of their concerns. Don't lose their job. Keep your mouth shut. Like, there's investigations right now that are still showing that systemic nepotism where they will not rat each other out. Even though there's investigations going against so many staff out there from all the allegations that have been made, from what I'm being told from reliable sources, they're not getting in group meetings and going, right, everyone here better come forward and say what you know now. They're in there going, you better have deleted your emails. Like, we need to make sure, you know, I mean, they're trying to cover everything up. They're not even, like, this commission of inquiry is going to bring them all down, but yet they're still trying to hide it. Like,
they'll go down in a hail of fire, man.
Yeah, it's sickening. Like, you know, I've been someone I've never committed a sexual offence, but I've been the person doing the wrong thing, and you know when you're fucked. Like, you may as well just admit it and cop the consequences. Trying to undermine the process, which, in all honesty, I don't mind if they do it because the punishment will be worse, just like it should be. Just like it is for criminals when they try and lie and say they're not guilty and then they're found guilty. Like, the punishment is always more severe. And so it should be for them as well, for trying to undermine the process and use their intrinsic relationships with one another and their bonds because they all basically come from Darran or the surrounding area. Like, they're not coming from down the East Coast or here or there. They all, like, it is run by families, like, quite literally. Like, yeah. Back to, Huon. It was weird, because at this point, all the 18-year-olds, I think there was still several kids or adults at the centre that were 18 or a bit older. But at this point, they'd gotten rid of the whole, you can be 22 and still be here. So, like, over that year and a half since I first went there, they were gone. Now it was, if you were 18, unless you were really good and you were about to get out, you were gone. You had to go to Risdon or the Remand Centre or somewhere else. You couldn't be housed at Ashley's. But yeah, in terms of still being left with sex offenders and, you could have 15 kids to one of these units. You may have 1 or 2 sex offenders in it, but then you've also got 3 or 4, kids that shouldn't be in there with the other 10 kids. Do you know what I mean? They're either older, bigger, smarter, violenter, more cunning, more calculated. They should be separated. They shouldn't all be housed. It's like you're schooled in that environment, You're groomed and you're schooled. You're taught nothing but bad things when you're surrounded by bad minds and bad people with bad hearts and bad souls. Like,
there's many TV shows and movies made about this shit, man.
Yeah.
It's real.
100%. Like, and that's honestly why I'm here today, Darran. Like,
that's why I asked you to start, man. That's what I said to you at the start. I said, what's the message? I normally ask that at the end. But I know that people are going to listen to this and watch this and trying to figure out what the message is. They already know.
Yeah. I acknowledge, like, without tooting my own horn, I honestly acknowledge that 95% of our state's criminals, youth and adult, respect me one way or another and look up to me in the sense that, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, but I was also all the wrong things. Violent, unpredictable, a drug addict, and feared. Like, they're not the 4 things that I want everyone to be looking at me for. I want them to look at me for change of lifestyle, holding down a normal job, most of all being a father to my only child, being there for her and like trying to teach her all the right things in this world that I didn't get taught after my father died. And also that if I can do it, it may not happen for them overnight, but if that's what they truly want, that's what will happen. It's the laws of attraction. Like, you surround yourself with like-minded people with similar goals or that same sort of attitude toward achieving their goals or dreams, and things will slowly start happening for you. Like, yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
You're an absolute story of redemption. I was this close to Gun Ashley's in year 8. I would have been, how old are you in year 8? Shit. 14. I was 14. Moved out of home, stealing cars. We took a car from South Hobart, drove it down to Trojan High School, went on the ovals, did burnouts. We were going to push it into the river because we thought that would get rid of our prints and stuff. We couldn't move it. We bailed. We went off, started snorting, woke up the next day, went to school, sat in the science block and looked down and went, who did that? Yeah. We did. We loved it.
Yeah.
And then a bit later on, there was a drug bust somewhere, and one of the people had the registration papers. You know how you are as a kid, you keep things, you do stupid shit.
Yeah.
And the rego papers were in the diary, and coppers put us all together, arrested us from school at the top bus stop at Trojan High School, took us down, and had to go to court. So I skipped state, went to Victoria. Mum went. She said, Darren's fucking gone, yada yada. And they said, if he ever comes back, he'll face this and any other charge. I came back a year later. And in that time, I was hearing about Ashley's, I was hearing about what you're talking about. Man, if I had gone down that path, you and I would have been very, very, very ended up in similar situations. But what saved my life, man? I'll tell you what saved my fucking life at 19. I was sitting there drinking blind, blotto, drunk at 19 started drinking at 13 all the way through to that and I still drink. But there I was, and Pumping Iron came on the telly. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And I'm just like, what's that? And all my mates are going, oh, man, that's so gay. What the heck that? What is that? Who's that dude? I'm like, that dude's epic. And as you can look around the room, you can see like remnants of Arnold. And I just thought to myself, I want to try this thing, you know? And
bodybuilding.
Yeah, bodybuilding. And the next day I woke up hungover and I was taking creatine and I was dehydrated. So I started vomiting. Mm-hmm. I do my weights and then I get spastic drunk and vomit in my bed and wake up and do weights next to my vomit in my bed. And I just do this cycle and that saved my life, man. You know?
Yeah. Because
you're lucky to be here, man.
Oh, I acknowledge that.
And we haven't even gone into some of the adult stuff that's occurred in your life. And you can touch on it. I want you to touch on it. But, you know, I look at Greeley's album with, you know, Risdon Wisdom and look on here and think to myself, how did I never end up there? You know? And I've done things through my life, a couple of things through my life where I've ended up back in that lifestyle. When I was 30, I got wrapped up in, you know, trafficking steroids. The cops came in and got me, and it was Operation Petty, and I had the photo on the wall and all the business, and they got my phone, and all the guys are messaging me, and the cops are saying, oh, so-and-so's messaging, and I'm not going to say any names. Yeah. But I got wrapped up in that and got done with trafficking, and I'm just like, I got out of that, and I went back in. Isn't it funny how, and I'm not saying you're going to go back in because I don't think you are. No. But it's easy. It's familiar.
Yeah.
That lifestyle's familiar. And that's without me going into my childhood. But I listened to your childhood and mine was very similar, just blood everywhere. Yeah. As a kid. No wonder we end up like this. But now look at us, sitting across from each other. A couple of blokes being vulnerable now, being honest and transparent, right? And this, it's not for us. I'm not doing this for myself, and I know you're not doing this to make yourself feel better. You know who you are. You want this message to get to other people, am I right or wrong?
100%.
Because there's little fuckers out there right now that live exactly how you did it, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and beyond.
Yeah.
And they think, what do they think? Can't we learn from lessons of the past? You know?
Yeah.
You're a miracle. You should be dead.
Oh,
should be dead. You're a miracle.
Thanks, man.
It's the truth, right?
Yeah, 100%.
How many times have you faced death? Certain death. Just round the corner.
Yeah.
And avoided it either by decision, by going, I'm not going to do that, or by near miss. Shit, what the heck happened then? Countless. You're a testament to how strong the human body is too. How much junk have you put into your body? Countless. You couldn't itemize it.
No.
If you were in Risdon right now, we could be sitting across the table. I could be visiting you in Risdon and we could be having a chat and you'd be wearing what colour do you wear over there?
I've never made it past orange.
I don't know the system. We'll get to that in a second. But you'd be sitting in orange and I'd be sitting here chatting to you. I've been over the Risdon. I've visited mates over there.
Yeah.
This could be that. But it's not. You're here telling a story. I think it's absolutely courageous.
And I'm extremely grateful to be given the opportunity.
I vetted you a bit. You know, I spoke to you and said, show us your story. And I wanted to get from you what you want to actually tell us. Yeah. What are you here for? Are you here to gloat? Are you here to do like an underbelly sort of expose of your life? And you're not. You're here to tell the truth. And hopefully, even if it gets one kid, hits one kid.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, gets into one kid's ears. That's the goal, right?
100%.
And your book, that's the best way. Get your book done, promote it, get it out there. You said before, I don't like to toot my own horn. You said it a couple of times. But why not? You know, isn't that funny how Tasmanians and Australians, not so much in America, but Tasmania and Australia.
It's culture.
It's like, shut up, don't toot your own horn. Hang on a second. Been through hell, and I want my story to help others.
Yeah.
I'm not glorifying my life, and neither are you. You're disgusted by your behaviour. But you couldn't. You're trapped. You're absolutely trapped. Even the people that were there to protect you were harming you. And if we can stop young kids not going to Ashley's, right? Just that. Shit.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's massive. And all these programs and government things that they do, none of it compares to what you're doing right here now. None of it.
I know that. Like when I was going to Ashley's, there was 75, 80, sometimes up to 90 people there, like detainees. I'm told now there's 7.
Interesting. What does that mean?
I don't know, because
is it programs? Is it the programs that lead you there? Because by the sound of it, back in your day, it was crime Ashley's. Now perhaps it's crime, program, prehabilitation, that type of thing.
Yeah,
it's steps to get to Ashley's, and I bet you those 7 at Ashley's, they're fuckers.
They're not. Yeah, they're on their way to jail, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
But back in your day, it sounded like everyone went there.
Because having, like, I don't deny that I just made it this far without no hiccups. Like, I had 2, we'll say, significant mental health breakdowns in the past 5 years, and prior to that, a dozen serious ones. Like, where they're serious enough for most people to be like, well, like, he's fucking out there. Like,
what do you mean?
Paranoid, unpredictable, volatile, violent, extremely dangerous person to be around, and just crazy. Like,
dude, I love being around you. I don't know why. I see myself in you, but you're where I could have gone. And I see that in you. And I see, what I see when I look at you? I see every fucking AFL player that's ever existed. Do you get that, Derek? You look like a fucking athlete, bro. You look like you should be in the Ultimate Fighter. You've got a strong jaw, strong neck, strong shoulders. You've got a nice smile. You've got a great complexion. You've got nice hair. You wear nice clothes, and you speak well. You could have been every AFL footy player. You speak better than most AFL footy players that are just out there fucking around. You need to get this book written, and you need to make yourself fucking famous, bro, and get out there and show the world what's possible. And stop saying, I don't want to toot my own horn.
I was just about to say, when you said earlier about knowing my message and knowing who I am, I'll be honest with you, Darran, like, I actually reached out to me psychologist probably 8 weeks ago, and like I said to her, I said, look, like, I don't know what an identity crisis is, but I've heard the phrase, and like what I've read on the internet and stuff, I said, I think I'm having one. Like, when I'm recording my music and writing it and writing my book and all these things, like, 4 years ago, I would have been more conscious of, like you said, making it so that people are like, oh, fuck, this cunt, like, oh, he's the baddest cunt in fucking 2 leagues. Like, fuck, this cunt's mad. Like, now when I'm writing everything and doing everything, I'm so subconsciously aware that some kid out there is going to read it and take it the wrong way, that I feel like I'm watering it down too much. But on the same hand, I've just accepted that I'd rather water it down 1,000 times over than butter it up 1% if it's going to cost some poor kid their juvenile, years in a detention centre, or take them from being some low level, we won't say low level, but, some minor crime committing offender to someone going, fuck it. He's not even that scary looking. He's fucking, he could have fucking done anything, but he chose to do crime. That's the life. I don't want anyone to take that view, because that is not what, trust me, like, you'll regret it. Like, you will regret it. It may not be in 1 year. It may not be in 10 years. It took me 22 years of offending and drug addiction to finally realise that all I've done is cause pain and suffering on, 1, my family and loved ones, 2, the greater community and people I will never even meet, and 3, myself. Like, there's no question that crime and drugs and that, as you referred to, underbelly lifestyle it's not glamorous in any way, other than you get all these things really quickly that can be taken away from you even quicker. Like, it's not the life that anyone should be aspiring to, because it'll never last. Like, never. No criminal in the world gets away with it forever. And trust me, having your freedom ripped out from under you, being taken from your children, your partner, your friends, your lifestyle, it hurts. But you really have to reflect on the fact that to get all these things that you're now upset about being taken from you, you've either dealt drugs, which I refer to as dealing in pain, misery, and suffering of others, or you've gone and broken into someone's store, you've stole someone's car and sold it. You've negatively, harmfully, and hurtfully impacted someone else to get there. So why are you now upset that you're going to jail for doing that? It's the mentality. Like, you know what I mean?
I wouldn't accept it. I wouldn't accept to hear that from anyone else's lips but yours.
Thanks, man.
But isn't it funny how, politicians or whoever, the people in the community speak like this, but no one gives a fuck because they haven't been there. I don't know, man. I think you need to get a role somewhere and talk and speak.
I've actually been trying. I was asked to, go into a school in Launceston to speak to the disengaged youth of that school. There was about a dozen of them, several girls and about 10 boys. And I asked the school, the person who asked me to go there and do it, if I could put it on Facebook and, use it as a pro-social way of showing people that I'm trying to give back. I'm trying to actually make sure that kids don't follow in my footsteps and, look at me for all the wrong reasons. And they said, we don't have a problem with it at all. Just let us vet it before you put it, upload it. I said, no worries. Went away, wrote it, come back, and they said, no, that's fine. Post it. Within 60 minutes of it being on my Facebook, there was an email sent to every senior high school in the state asking, because I didn't identify which school I was going to, asking which school had agreed to have me come on site and speak to their kids, and then basically said he's a convicted criminal, he's a drug addict, he's on a Supreme Court order, he doesn't have a working with vulnerable children's card, or like just every reason under the sun, which I now look back and respect someone come out and said that, because at the time I was furious. I went and smoked dope. Like, I'm on a Supreme Court order. I'm not meant to have drugs in my system. It was one of the only times since I've been out that I've gone to dope as a coping mechanism, because it shattered me that much that they would try and insinuate that I was a danger to these kids. But when I actually got off the dope a week later and sat back and thought about it, I remembered, like what I said to you earlier, people at that detention centre never used to be vetted. You could go and work with our state's most vulnerable kids and not even have a police check.
And then you're tarnished with that brush.
And I did not appreciate it at the time. And then a week later, I was just like, I felt like slapping myself up the head. These are exactly the things that I want put in place. No one should be allowed to go and work with a kid unless they are vetted properly. Like, just because someone looks and presents like a good person doesn't mean they are. Like, what people are like behind closed doors with other vulnerable people that they know they can take advantage of and things like that. It's scary. Like, you can't imagine it until you meet someone and you think, oh, this person's all right. And then a week later, they're belting you, trying to abuse you. Like, you don't actually get it. Like, and you can't explain it to them. Like, you can say it, but it doesn't psychologically explain it to them, because they can't imagine it. They can picture it, but they can't actually go, oh, yeah. Like,
I can't feel it.
No, someone done that. They're not going, oh, yeah, I know what it's like. But, yeah.
How far are you through your book?
I've pretty much written it in handwriting. Well, I have written it in handwriting up to 25 years of age. So there's still 7 years left of it that I haven't written. But I've started typing it now, and I think I'm up to 150,000 words or characters or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a publisher and everything worked out? Do you know what you're doing there?
Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of publishers, but I don't know. Like, they're all pretty keen on taking control of how the cover looks, how the bit at the back reads, all the colours of it, all these sorts of things, and I don't yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that because once again, I think they're more interested in making it a crime book and not a, like
redemption story.
yes, like it's not for me. It's not about going. I've been charged with everything from riding a bike without a helmet to murder. It's not about that for me. It's about no matter what I went through and was put through, I still managed to come out the other side and make a decent life for my daughter first and me second. And, I don't sit here for a second and attribute that to only me. There is several people out there who, later on I'd like to name and, say a massive thank you to for sticking by me, helping me in the very beginning, giving me the confidence to believe in myself and not giving up on me, even when I was giving up on myself, having a similar sort of identity crisis, going, fuck, like, this isn't me. Like, I'm so used to, not taking no for an answer under any circumstance, let alone having to bust me guts out 10 times over and being told it's not good enough 10 times. I've never had to deal with anything like that over the age of 16, like I'm so used to just taking, dominating, being the alpha male and never not getting what I want. Like, so to have to throw all that away and rebuild and reshape my core beliefs and values so that, I'm always respecting other people's opinions and their decision making, and it's all so new for me. Like, and I get overwhelmed with it because, I still feel that. I still feel my heartbeat go from 80 beats a minute to 190, and I'm just sitting there going, "Oh no, I feel sick," like because I'm used to just snapping, like, and I'm medicated now, so I've got that all under control. But like the physical feeling of like just getting wound up, that I don't think that's ever going to go away. Like it's just being able to, right? It's just like this because this is normal to you. Like this isn't what you're used to. Just roll with the punches, listen to what they got to say, and just work through it, and you'll be fine. Like,
And I think that's good with your book. I want you to take your time with that. Find the right publisher.
yeah,
Don't try and change these other publishers' minds and how they operate. Find the right publisher for you that gives you the control.
yeah,
Take your time with it. Get that book written properly. Give it to someone to proofread and then type up and then make it into what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You're doing the right thing, man.
Yeah.
Real quick, because I wanted to get into your early childhood the most because it's important.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the message. But what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Late teens, early 20s. What did it look like? Are you trying not to glorify it? Are you thinking to yourself, how do I say this without – what are you thinking?
Just that I don't want to be honest. Yeah, I want to water it down. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you?
To be honest with you, man, from
what led you to Risdon?
How did I get there?
Yeah, what transpired there?
Basically, I was taken to Risdon. Well, I was taken to Hobart Remand Centre when I was 17 and a half because I'd escaped from Ashley's 5 or 6 weeks prior, was recaptured, taken back to Ashley's, put in what they call a NAP program, non-association program, where you're locked down 23 and a half hours a day for 12 weeks. And yeah, probably 4 weeks into that 12 weeks, like I was getting out again, right or wrong. I'd already made my mind up. I wasn't staying there. I was sick of the place. Like I was happy. Well, I thought I would be happy to go to jail. Yeah, I conspired with the other detainees to get a book that we knew wouldn't fit under my door, but would fit under other detainees' doors. Like there's different gaps under your doors. And yeah, we arranged for them to pass the book under one door and say, "Oh, can you give that to Caine? Like I'm not meant to be allowed. My cell door's meant to remain shut at all times unless there's 3 or 4 or more staff there." And because I've escaped, I'm a fairly big boy at this stage. And yeah, the book wouldn't go under my door. And yeah, as soon as he undone my door, I just kicked it in his face, overpowered him, threw him back in the cell. First I smashed his radio, smashed his dress, took his keys, threw him in the cell, locked him in there, and then let me best mate out, the one that I've been talking about the whole way through the thing. Went to the office, let the other 13 detainees out, and 5 of us escaped. And was on the run for 11 or 12 days.
Literally on the run.
Yeah.
On your feet.
Yeah. And when we got captured, instead of going back to Ashley's, I got to when they took me back to the cop shop in the Launceston Remand Centre, they explained to me that I wouldn't be going back to Ashley's and that I was going to Hobart Remand Centre. And
which was the goal, kind of.
Yeah, I didn't want to be at Ashley's anymore, that's for sure. But our good old state government would make sure that, you know, that next 8 weeks would be something that I'll never forget for the rest of my life.
In remand.
100%. That's how I ended up in Hobart Remand Centre. So I was 17 and 5 months or something.
What happened? Take your time.
No, well, to put it in, you know, there's going to be a lot of people out there that won't be happy to hear this. Family members, not of mine, but yeah. To put it in simple terms, during that 6 or 9 months prior to me going to Hobart Remand Centre, do you remember the prison officer smuggling the firearm and the stuff into the prison?
Yeah, I've read through your stuff. Yeah,
he got 5.5 or 6.5 years for trying to traffic a gun and drugs and stuff into the prison.
Right.
Well, yeah, the person at the centre of all that, the person that was meant to be shot once the gun was in the jail and this and that, was the leader of one of our state's prison gangs, and he is our state's worst repeat violent sex offender and criminal or overall. He was taken from the prison and placed in the remand centre for his protection from the other gang with inside the jail that smuggled the gun in to, you know, shoot him. And basically our state government and our correctional services people decided that it'd be a good idea to lock 2 17-year-olds in there with him. He's now doing 5 years for raping his own 13-year-old daughter, probably 2 years before this, like what I'm just talking about now. He was only convicted of it 2.5, 3 years ago. And at this point I hadn't been belted or abused for probably 2.5 years. Like I started training. I was quite a large 16, 17-year-old. I had a growth spurt around then. And like the reason I didn't answer your question earlier was because, you know, it's conflicting and contradicting. Like at 16, 17, I thought I was the fucking toughest and baddest thing on 2 legs after everything that I'd been through and that had happened to me. I could fight. I was extremely aggressive and very crazy in the sense that there wasn't much that I wouldn't do if it come to winning or having to win, you know what I mean? And that was quickly ripped away from me when I went to that remand centre with our state's worst, most violent, sadistic fucking repeat sex offender. And I think it took 5 weeks, and I just broke. Like I was in my cell one night, and like he would be at me every day talking about me family, talking about my sister, talking this, like just trying to break me, you know, like in every way that you can fucking imagine. And I lost it. Like I flipped out in my cell, smashed my way out of the cell after about 10 minutes, and ripped level 4 of the remand centre to pieces. I ended up getting charged with it naturally. $25,000 damage. Anything that could be ripped from whatever it was bolted or screwed to, I ripped it from and stacked it up out the front of his cell door, and threatened to set the thing on fire, and trying to, you know, I was suicidal, you know, like I was at the point where I was just I couldn't do it anymore. Like, and as you've acknowledged all the way through here, like at this point, like I am going to remain staunch for the rest of my life. I'm not going to rat or roll on anyone. So like I had no choice, you know, in my mind, I had no choice. Like I wasn't going to let him break me, but I couldn't keep going through with the beltings and beatings every fucking day, being smacked around with plastic cricket bats and fucking burnt with things that have been heated up and fucking just, he's a sadistic cunt. Like, that's all there is to it. Like, and yeah, basically the tactical response group come in, cleared us out, whatever, or cleared me out. Yeah, I went on to a lockdown, obviously, because of the damage caused on the 6-man side, because this part of the remand centre only holds 6 people. So when me and my other 17-year-old mate went there, there was 3 people there. Two of them, between them, like this person that I'm referring to and another inmate, had roughly 30 to 40 sexual offences pending in the court. We're talking 12 counts of rape between them, 15 counts of abduction, fucking, you name it, like all serious sexual offences. And as I said, he was a well-known gang leader who had just been moved there for his own protection from an assassination plot where like a screw was trying to bring a gun in for the other gang to shoot him in the prison. Like, but he's there for his protection.
Yeah, man, it's tough to hear, you know. Fuck, man. You were a wild motherfucker. Were, right?
Oh, I don't hate it. You know, obviously it's made me who I am, but yeah.
Who are you?
32 years of ramifications of bad choices.
But you've also been unprotected.
Oh, 100%.
You know, it's not just, and it's so hard to say this, but it's not just your fault.
No, definitely not.
But it's hard, isn't it? Isn't it hard to put blame on others when you know it was your fault? And as you're a 32-year-old man,
especially when you're so pride-ridden, and you know, I don't. Other than bickering and petty shit, I don't blame no one for nothing. Not my father, not my mother, not my auntie, not the justice system, not the correctional officers.
And then the day you made every choice.
100%.
Yeah, right.
Oh, apart from things that I was made do that I, you know, couldn't stop from happening.
No,
yes,
you're trapped.
I made most choices.
But what landed you there?
Yeah, 100%.
What happened after that is not your fault. Yeah. Man. It's hardcore. There's no other word for it.
Yeah.
You know? But you're done with it.
100%.
Can you see yourself walking through those gates ever again?
As a role model, yeah. As someone that can hopefully change that systemic belief amongst the men in there that, you know, this is not your life. This is just a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, what your life is what you are comfortable with by the end of it. I'm 32 and like I never thought I'd make 21, let alone 25. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. How you made 25, who would know? I get it.
But yeah, I do see myself walking into that prison and that boys' home again one day, but only for the most positive of reasons. Like, this is another thing I spoke to my psych about. Like, I'm really trying, like, I'm working to get my Working with Vulnerable People's card and stuff. And like, I said to her, like, I feel like my biggest problem would be not being able to detach from anyone that I start trying to help. Like, I wouldn't be able to give up on them because I know it's possible. It'd be so hard for me to watch and then let them continue to destroy themselves when I know how happy they'll be if they stop. Like, I know drugs, when you're a user and especially an addict, that like I don't know how many times I've been kicked out of drug and alcohol classes and rehabilitative programs and all this stuff because all different times of my life, all different professionals, they sit there and tell everyone in the room, whether there's 2 years or 12 years, that everyone takes drugs for their own reasons or different reasons. I don't believe that is true. Like, people take drugs because they make them happy. That's the only reason. Like, yes, people take them because they've had a bad day or this or that, but it makes you happy. You don't take any drug because it makes you go and cry in the corner. A recovering addict trying to get off drugs, maybe, they may use and then be depressed and sad that they've done it. But your general addict, they're not doing it because it makes them sad or because it makes them angry or this, or they're doing it because it makes them happy. It gives them that sense of happiness that they can't get any other way. Like, that's the only reason. Like, and yeah, I just, you know, having, like I said to our Royal Commission, the way our detention centre was run, I'd like to think it was unprecedented. Like, I've seen the stuff about Don Dale and yeah, it's bad, like that sort of stuff. Like, but when I see that poor kid strapped to that chair with that hood over his head, I remember vividly being cuffed behind my back, cuffed to my feet, and then having my hands cuffed to my hands behind my back, being left naked on a concrete, cold, freezing-ass floor for 6, 8, I don't know how many hours, but it was first thing in the morning till late at night. And trust me, I'd be in that chair any day over that. Like, for a week straight, the whole side of your body, whichever side you spent most of that time on that freezing cold fucking floor, it feels like you're a fragile old man, like, because you've been on that cold for so long. Like, I'm not trying to take away anything from what happened to that boy or any of the children that were put in them chairs and that, but our detention centre was fucked. Like, it was run by inhumane, sadistic people that should never have been allowed to step foot on site, let alone have decision-making in operational, the way things were run, how we were punished, all them sorts of things. They should never have been there to start with, let alone making them sort of calls. Like, and yeah, I don't know. I just want to be able to help, to be honest. Like, it's so hard, like I said, with my music. Like, it does. Like, you're going to line up 20 people in any state of this country and 19 of them are going to tell you that my music is doing nothing but glorifying crime, drugs, violence, all the wrong things, you know, like. But the only way to really answer for that is to say, you know, that is the life. Like, what am I meant to do? Am I meant to not make music as the single one thing, only second to my daughter, that has helped me change my life from actually doing all these things, just because there's people there saying that you're doing it to glorify it? It's not about that at all. If I was still doing these things and trying to encourage people to do them and rapping about them, that'd be a whole different ball game. Like, I'd agree. I'd be a piece of shit. Like, I'm trying to ruin people's lives through incitement with music. Well, I'm not. I'm just trying to help them relate to my story through my music, all the while behind the microphone saying, don't ever do that. Like, do you know what I mean? That is not the way you want to live. It is not the choices you should make. Like, you will regret it. Like,
there's no better way to get to the youth than through music,
exactly.
right?
Like, exactly.
It's the way.
Yeah.
Tell me, man, what was it like walking into Risdon for the first time? How old were you?
Still 17.
What was it like, man? I mean, you're going from Ashley's, which is like a plantation sort of situation where you've got like unit here and a unit there and the office there, but you're walking into a place with high, barbed wire walls.
My admission into the prison system in general, I'd like to think is unprecedented, because I know, especially from 2007 to now, don't know about before that. People probably had it worse, and their circumstances and situations were probably more fucked up than mine. But no one between the day that I went to that remand centre and the day that I went to that prison up until this date have had a worse welcoming than I have had. I can categorically guarantee that. So after we had the incident where I've broken out of my cell and wanted to burn this sex offending scum's world down, it was locked down for however long. It was probably 2 weeks into me lockdown. They locked me back in the cell that I broke out of and moved the other 4 detainees to the other side, where there's an office and telephone and all that between the 2 yards. That yard holds about 14 people. Our yard only held 6. 2 weeks into that lockdown, I was on the phone and I looked up into the yard where like this person that had forced me to break out of my cell and my other 17-year-old mate and all these other inmates were, and they were holding a sign up saying, get ready, we're about to riot. And I'm just like, yes, like, you know what I mean? I'm locked down, fucking hating life. And I got off the phone and went back to my cell. And yeah, they let me food hatch down because it was nearly dinner time to come around and pass your food and that through. And yeah, as soon as they shut the yard door, like to get into my yard, I watched the one officer stand there, and then I watched the medication trolley come into sight with the medication officer and another 2 screws like protecting the medication officer with the medication trolley. And as soon as they undone that door to that yard with 14 or 15 other inmates in it, they just booted the door straight in their face, and then, yeah, literally grabbed the officer, had a like homemade shiv with him, and 2 of them had shivs, and, yeah, bailed them up in the corner while the other inmates took the trolley back into the yard. They didn't hurt or harm the officers. They just threatened them, you know what I mean? As soon as they got the medication trolley, they pulled the door back shut and went back into the yard. The officers took straight off out of the floor, you know what I mean, because they instantly just started smashing everything in the yard, broke all the windows along the face of it on the door where they just shut to get in there. Yeah, and immediately I just started trying to get out of my cell. My windows were perspex at this point because I'd smashed out of them, you know, 3-4 weeks before. And yeah, just out of pure, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but there's people that can verify it, out of pure excitement and rage that I wasn't in on that riot, I was smashing my food hatch up and down with all my energy and ended up breaking it off and just pulling it back into me like through the hatch. And like obviously it's got really sharp edges where it's just been snapped off the door frame. And yeah, literally like wrapped a pillow around my hand, used the pillow slip to tie it, and then just had the food hatch like that, like with the pillow against my palm, and just kept slamming into the, like there was a steel frame that held the door on, but right beside it was just like Besser brick blocks, you know, the ones like they used to build. Well, little did anyone know in that remand centre, it's hollow. There's nothing but a steel rod in them bricks. As soon as I give it 3 hits, it took a chunk out like that, and I was putting my hand in past the rod bar and tapping on the other bit that's only that thick on the other side. I smashed a hole about that long and about that wide all the way up the inside, like the side beside the door frame. And by the time they'd smashed out of that yard and smashed into my yard, I had my arm like out there giving them the finger like, oh, hurry up, come get me out. And yeah, they got into the yard and then smashed the other side out, and I eventually, you know, slivered out through this little hole in the wall and, yeah, joined in. I won't say I joined in on the riot because I never got charged with it. But, yeah, took part in getting out of my cell and sitting out the riot. But, yeah, we planned on, like, it was $750,000 or $250,000 damage or something that we'd done to it. And yeah, we planned on sitting it out for a while just due to the conditions and all that sort of stuff, whatever. But yeah, 3 of the boys started overdosing, like because we'd taken the medication trolley. And yeah, one of them was like full convulsing. People were putting him on his side, trying to apply first aid, whatnot, and they wouldn't race up and take him out of there. They were like, he's either all surrender or there's no deal. Like, we just wanted them to take the sick inmate, obviously, but no, they wouldn't. So we all agreed we had to surrender, or someone was going to be held accountable for the inmate dying by not, whoever was in charge of the riot would have been held accountable. So, yeah, we all surrendered. And, yeah, they literally, the riot squad come in and, yeah, called us out one at a time. And, yeah, I think they took 6 of us, 6 out of the 15 straight to Risdon, and the rest got taken to the floor below. And I was one of the 6, which was not surprising given they basically tried to say there hadn't been a serious incident like me smashing out of my cell in the remand centre ever. And then within weeks of me doing that, there's a full-scale riot, and we've only been in the remand centre for 6 weeks. And they're like, it's clearly, yous have caused all this. Yous have come from Ashley's after taking a worker hostage and escaping, and then you break out of you. They were just blaming it all on me, basically. And, yeah, took me straight to Risdon. Little did I know what I was referring to earlier about the officer trafficking the gun into the prison and all these things. I knew none of this. I was 17 years old. I was in Ashley's. I knew nothing about it. Didn't know that this person that had been belting me and doing all these things to me for weeks was the most hated inmate in the jail. And there was a whole gang over there that wanted to kill him, 30, 40 blokes. Here I am locked in the remand centre getting tortured by him every day for weeks until I snap. But as soon as I get to the prison, oh, you're his best mate. You've been over there fucking training with him. You've been over there living with him. I was 17 years old. I knew none of what they were talking about.
Right.
It was all explained to me once I got there, on top of you're dead. So, yeah. Yeah, it was fucked. But I stuck it out. That's what I mean. I didn't, I got 3 outed. I watched, I wouldn't say he was my mate, but he was part of the, when I first went to jail, it was north versus south, because of this person that was in the remand centre for protection, because he'd done so many bad things and his gang had done things to the southern gang and the jail become north versus south. And me being from the north meant I was part of the north. It didn't matter that I had heaps of friends from the south and done heaps of Ashleys with the boys that were there, and they all love me and look up to me, because at the end of the day, it was the older fellas that I didn't know that had been in jail for years that ran the other gang and decided that I was a threat, so I needed to be treated just like everyone else from the north. And, yeah, I got 3 outed once, which wasn't severe. I wasn't hospitalised or anything. It was scary, don't get me wrong. It's not nice having 3 people kick you in the face and jump on your skull. But, yeah, it didn't change my position or perspective. I was told that the reason it happened was because I had to leave the yard. I was one of only 3 Northerners in a yard that holds 26 people. And, yeah, it was maximum mainstream. The jail at this point only had maximum mainstream, maximum protection, and there was no fucking way I was going to maximum protection for something that had nothing to do with me from the beginning, like the whole north versus south thing. I was a boy, you know what I mean? I was still only 17. I had nothing to do with it. And, yeah, I just refused to leave and basically, yeah, just got, apart from my couple of close mates that didn't join in on the gang bashing, yeah, just got treated like shit and, couldn't really pull any rank or anything like that in the yard for years, basically, probably 2 years, until things sort of died down and, everyone from down the south realised that, I wasn't like all these other cunts that they'd turned on and had this big gang war with, I was the new generation, you know what I mean? And, yeah, basically I'm really good mates with every single one of them now.
That was your first time. That was your first time in Risdon.
Yeah.
And that was a 2-year stint?
No, I ended up... That's weird, actually. What actually happened was I was charged with aggravated armed robbery, 7 car thefts, 7 ram raids, 7 stealings during the ram raids, and 7 burnings of vehicles. And yeah, I done 2.5 months or something in Ashley's, when I escaped that first time and then escaped properly the second time. And then when they caught me, they said I wasn't going back to Ashley's. I was going So then I done 7.5 months between the remand centre and Risdon. Turned 18 in super maximum in the jail, and then got out on the 20th of December 2008 or 9, and was on Supreme Court bail for the armed robbery and the car thefts and the ram raids and all that stuff. And then 6 days after I got Supreme Court bail, I was rearrested on Boxing Day and charged with murder and taken straight back.
What's that all about?
In simple terms, I wasn't there, like when the murder took place. Someone, like a witness that give evidence in the trial and the preliminary proceedings before the trial, we had previous grievances, like we'd punched on before, had a fight over a girl. This was probably 18 months before this incident, and he was sitting on the front doorstep of the house where the murder took place with a group of other people who live there, and this fool drives driven up onto the nature strip. This is what he said in preliminary proceedings, not in his police statement that got me locked up. In his police statement, he said that the four-wheel drive pulled up, all 4 doors come open, and he seen me jump out of the vehicle, and he took off for his life because he thought we were there for him because of our disagreement. In preliminary proceedings, he come and said, look, I'm going to admit that I've made a mistake and that I was so scared when the four-wheel drive pulled up that it may have been Caine, that I had basically already made my mind up that it was, and I grabbed my girlfriend and we ran inside. I never actually seen anyone that jumped out of the vehicle. I just know that people were getting out really quickly. Like they pulled up, doors come open, and then, it basically was established that he never actually could identify anyone, let alone me, because he didn't stick around long enough to see who got out of the four-wheel drive. He ran. And I ended up doing 8.5 or 9 months for that. And
for
then
what?
For the murder on remand until the preliminary proceedings. Me and my next youngest brother were, I think, the 2nd and 3rd men in Australia to ever be bailed charged with murder. Because once they established that neither me or him were actually there, based on evidence from one of the perpetrators inside the vehicle and people at like witnesses at the scene, they established in preliminary proceedings, like before the trial, that we weren't even there. But yet we spent all that time in jail because of it. Which, like sitting here to this day, I was happy to do that time simply because someone lost their life. Like, wasn't like I was in there crying, poor me, because I really wasn't. Like, I understand I was a bad criminal. I had a fucking bad name. Everyone in that vehicle I was known and closely associated with. And like someone had lost their life, like little children lost their father, like people lost their brothers, husbands. Like, it wasn't like I was crying, poor me. Like, I didn't want to be found guilty, don't get me wrong. Like, but we just stuck it out. And, I was just relying on the fact that this person would tell the truth. And because I'd seen his statement, and like I knew exactly what it was all about. Like, he just presumed it was me or had made up it was me. And thank fuck he come in there and told the truth. Like,
but there's a huge lesson there, right?
Several.
Fucking oath. Whether you do it or not, whether you do it being whatever it is, if you're around or associated to, and I've been through lockup and arrested and fingerprinted and videoed and they drill you on who you're associated with. They want to know 100%. Who you know, what you've been doing with them, yada yada. So now here you are living a life that you don't even know who's going to say what about you. You could be associated to any crime, and they're going to lock you up before they ask you questions, before they get to the truth, because dangerous criminal.
Yeah.
And this is what the youth need to know. The youth need to know that just because you didn't do it, literally didn't do it, but someone put your name up in lights, you're gone.
Yeah. And the whole, I'll stick staunch, like that's what's embedded into these kids. So when they're put in that exact position you're talking about, it's, they're having a crisis immediately because they swear to themselves and they swear to the people close to them that are grooming them and their best friends that they'd never rat anyone in. But trust me, I've been in that position where I'm sitting there. I didn't actually know what took place with this murder until 9 hours after I'd gotten out of my cell in the remand centre. And I was in there with everyone else that was charged. And it was finally explained to me after 9 hours. Like, I had a full meltdown. I'd been out 6 days, you know what I mean? Like, and just relocked back up. And there's these cunts in there drug fuck pacing around talking shit like nothing had happened. We're all charged with murder. And they had something to do with it and I didn't. Trust me.
Because you don't have phone on you. You don't have social media. You don't have message. You don't have any of that shit. Once you get locked up, you feel alone.
Oh, 100%. You are alone.
And this is what I don't think some of the kids take into consideration.
Yeah, definitely.
That they think, some of these kids think they've got rights. They do have rights, but they have a right to make a phone call. They have a right to talk to their attorney, their lawyer. They have a right to maybe talk to a loved one for a little bit, but you don't get to take your...
It's all basic.
Fucking basic as fuck, right? You don't get to take your phone in and message your mates as to what you're going to say later on. No. I just think it's so volatile, that lifestyle. And like you said before, you're not getting out of this pretty.
Yeah.
Someone, even though you think, and you've alluded to this a few times, what you in a criminal lifestyle, who you think are your best mates, not always the case. Doesn't always follow through. When you're on the piss and on the drugs, having a great time, and you're swearing to each other like we're boys for life, for life, for life.
Yeah,
they come and go. Just like every relationship in life. I say to kids when I speak at schools, I say, everyone in this room, right? You got best mates, you got groups, you won't even know these people in 5 years.
Yeah.
You won't even remember them in 10 years. Some of you are going to be dead.
Yeah.
For natural causes, and some of you are going to OD, some of you are going to do the wrong thing, some of you are going to go left where you should have gone right. I don't know how to get through. That's sort of just say the truth, right?
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
But my story is a little bit different to yours. I curbed earlier. I was out of that early. I was out of that at 20. Dipping back and forth with violence and drugs and stuff. But man, it's I don't know, man. It's a real honor to be sitting here with someone that isn't here for an agenda of like politics or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Someone that's been there and done it. And this is the message. How's it feel sitting in a cell, not knowing what the other parties to the crime are saying about you? How do you feel? Like you must just be pacing, like thinking, I want you to get that through to the youth. I want that to be the message.
I've lived by a saying my whole life, and that is that you can't trust anyone with everything.
With some things.
And when you're in that position, whether you're a juvenile or an adult, you have to understand that no matter how much you care about your mate and how much the whole bros before hoes and all this crap, you can guarantee that belief will be quickly washed away by the actions of your friends, or just realization within yourself that is not what you want. Like, you can't just always think that this group mentality is going to stick, because as you just touched on, people that you are best friends with in 2010, and this is speaking firsthand, they're your worst enemies in 2012, literally. Like, they're calling you up, brother this, brother that still, but little do you know, they've already been turned 6 months prior. They've just prepped you to go get your guts kicked in. Like, you think you're turning up to something that you're not. Like, I've had it done to me. Like, I've had it done to me. Like, people that I've grown up with my whole life, like, and they're not doing it out of money or out of power or out of attitude change. They're doing it because someone got to them and threatened them. It's that simple. Like, you do that many wrong things and you ruffle the feathers of that many people doing this sort of stuff that you just never know when you're going to be got and be made pay for all these things that you do wrong. Like, it's not.
At one point or another, you've got to look after yourself.
100%. Yep.
Your life, not just your paycheck next week, not just your job, not just your car, not your vehicle, not your belongings. You've got to look after your life, your heart. You've got to keep your heart beating.
And for me personally, you know, like my daughter, like she's...
How old is she?
She just turned 10 4 days ago.
Right. My daughter turned 10 in May 30.
Beautiful age.
Yeah, man. Here we are.
Yeah, like I think back, like I was in Ashley's 1 year from now for her. Like the things that were happening to me 1 year from now at her age, like, yeah, like I want to educate her first and foremost before anyone else, obviously. But, you know, she has a good family on her mother's side and all the rest of it. So I don't really need to stress too much in the sense that she's had an amazing upbringing and she will turn out nothing like I was. But, yeah, for me, she's my way of being able to unequivocally project that growth that I've built within myself upon her first. And once I see her growing and developing into the young woman that I know she will, that's going to empower me so much to keep going, to do it with strangers, to do it with troubled kids, to do it with anyone that thinks that crime and drugs and not living a normal life is better than doing crime. You know what I mean? It's not. You're working and all that stuff. It's like the first 6 months I got out this time, I didn't have a kitchen sink. I didn't have a heat pump. My house was floorboards and there was 5 out of 17 walls in it. It was a gutted, like, dump. Like, I was ashamed to take girls there because it was nothing, but my daughter still loved it. She loved coming there and staying with me. Like, and it looks amazing now. But my point is, like, I had to make that choice to get out and live like that if I wanted to stay out in general. Like, I could have done this or done that to get money, but I'm well past that now. Like, there isn't, apart from defending myself or my family in the heat of the moment, if we are being attacked violently, there is nothing in this world that's going to take me back to that life. Like, everything that I've been through has taught me so much. Like, a lot of it comes down to drugs. A lot of it comes down to the abuse I suffered as a child, building and strengthening really bad core beliefs and things that, you know, like my impulse control's shot to shit. Like, I'm highly medicated all the time and it works for me, you know. Like, a lot of people, they don't realise they need medication because they self-medicate. That's the problem. Like, people just refer to it as, oh, you're a drug addict, oh, you're a junkie. No, he's self-medicating because he's got mental illnesses that are either underlying, not diagnosed, or all of the above, and he's just not dealing with it appropriately. Like, and yeah, children, like, they're the hardest because they still aren't in a position to make their own minds up. Like, they're being groomed. People are coaching them into doing things that they probably don't even believe in themselves, but they've got someone beside them telling them to believe in it. Like, they're not developed enough to make their own decisions. Like,
you weren't.
No, I definitely wasn't. Like, I've had it said to me by a specialist, like, that I basically had shell shock. You know, like, I went from living this perfect life where anything I did I was punished for appropriately and properly, and kept in strict routine. I was always, you know, praised for doing the right thing and supported and, you know, congratulated for succeeding in things and all this sort of stuff, to going into an environment where there was none of that. It was just drugs, violence, alcohol, and just absolute madness. Like, and yeah, I don't know. You know, we jumped off board at about 13. I've been keeping track of it in my head so I don't forget. But yeah, I just, you know, I think about my life, and as you've said several times, the message I want to get out there is like, there shouldn't be detention centres. There's always going to be a need for them.
Right.
Always going to be a need for them. There's always going to be children that, you
Slip
know,
through the cracks.
yeah, like, and that's sad to say. Like, it upsets me thinking that every child can't be saved, but not everyone's wired the same way either. Some people actually can't comprehend certain emotions that you and I can. Like, I never used to be able to when I wasn't on medication. After my father died, I didn't know what love was until I was, you know, I didn't love my own child until she was 6 years old, because I never had enough time with her to build that bond, to understand that she was a part of me and will always be a part of me. Like, it's only been since I was 27 when I first started medication, when I first come out about being abused. All these things, like, they bottle up inside you, and it really does. It dictates and determines what path your life will take without you realising it. Like,
what's psychotherapy done for you? What's seeing a psychologist and that pathway done for you?
it's really,
I get mixed, I hear mixed things.
for me personally, I refused to take medication until I was 27. I refused to be honest and upfront about my emotions and my most inner feelings with a specialist or psychologist or psychiatrist until I was 27. The first time I ever did, I cried, man. I cried that hard, like, and it was just like, you know, like, after I got out of that room, I fucking flipped. Like, I got back to my cell and I flipped because I was that embarrassed. I thought, how dare you do that to me? You know, how dare you break me down like that, to the point where I'm telling you things that I've never told anyone. And I swore I'd never tell anyone. Like, I was so ashamed. I just, you know, I could have killed them. Like, I was that angry, like, because I just thought they were fucking with me, you know what I mean? Like, thought, it's all right for you. You get paid to sit there and, you know, get me to cry and make me feel like this. Like, but you walk out the door and you're like, oh, Jesus. Yeah, I'm thinking, in my head, I'm thinking they're already up the spine, like we call the corridor spines in jail. I'm thinking you're already halfway up the spine going, oh, I was thinking, when would he stop? You know, making fun about my misery. Like, that's how I felt, because anything that had ever happened to me prior to that moment right there, I knew people were laughing at me. They were making fun of me, telling me it was going to happen again real soon, you know, like the worst things you can imagine. So, like, breaking down and being honest about how certain things make you feel when it brings you to tears, for me, it was the biggest invasion of my privacy. Like, and I felt like they were in the wrong. But yeah.
At 27,
you
were there, yeah.
But once it happened again and again and again, I finally started grasping the concept that this was good for me, you know, like, the reason I've been able to maintain no violence, no flip outs, no this, no that. Don't get me wrong, I did after 27 have another, because it was after the first siege that I ever had that I started actually seeking real help, because the way I was mentally was just so unbelievable for me, even for me, that I knew I needed help. Like, I knew something tragic that couldn't be taken back ever was going to happen if I didn't get help.
Yeah, fucking earth.
And I still had another significant mental breakdown, like, but yeah, in a way, I feel like, I wouldn't say they were warranted. You know, it cost our taxpayers a lot of money and put our police, ambulance, fire, all them sorts of resources under immense pressure. And I sit here now and honestly apologise for that. They could have been directed and used much better elsewhere than dealing with me. But, you know, I'm just glad that after everything that's happened, I can say that I've turned that corner. Like, I'm never going to use hard drugs again. And nothing is more important to me right now than my daughter first, and then using everything that I've learned along the way to push that onto the younger people, because adults are much harder to work with, in the sense that everything's built into them so toughly that unless they find it within themselves to want to change, you can't talk them round. Like, no one could talk me round. Like, it come down to me at that age. But our children, they're impressionable. They need role models. They want a lot of things. They just don't know what yet. You know what I mean? They have to, I always used to think to myself, if I'd have been surrounded with, as you said earlier, AFL players, if I'd have been surrounded by people from the military, that's where I would have went. If I'd have been surrounded by kickboxers at that age, that's where I would have went. Like people and things that you look up to that make you feel important and like you're doing good, that's what you'll go with. So when you've got people telling you, oh, you pulled a big cone, mate. Oh, how many glasses you had? Oh, 12. That's awesome. Just them little comments are enough to a 12-year-old to go, I'll drink that whole fucking bottle. It's sad. Like, it's so simplistic, but it's so toxic and dangerous. Like,
do you think the message there is for parents, if you can't be a good role model, find some.
Yep, 100%.
Like, throw your kid into X, Y, Z.
Yep.
Do you think that?
Yeah, definitely. Like parents, I'm not the perfect parent. I would never pretend that I am, but I would never, if my daughter found more comfort, happiness and joy in learning from someone else, I'm not going to do anything but support that. As long as she's learning, as long as it's positive, I'm going to encourage it. I don't care if I feel left out or like I'm not good enough to do it. That would hurt. I know it would. And for someone like me, it'd probably break me, that'd really hurt. But it's not about me. I'm a grown man. Like, I've had my time, you know what I mean? I need to focus on my daughter. Like, children, like, yeah. I was such a good kid, like, it's just certain things that happen you can't. Well, it's hard. Like, I know people that have been through very similar things to me in different settings, though, not in detention centres or not in correctional facilities. Maybe even at home, maybe at a friend's place, their parent or whatever it is, similar abuse, but under different circumstances and in different settings. And for some reason, they don't turn to drugs. They've never committed a crime in their life. They don't go out and rope in all their best friends to do everything that they're doing. They actually still live semi-structured lives. The only thing is they're medicated and they seek help from a very young age. And somehow that makes all the difference. Like, I don't know if that's just common sense or, I'm sure there's people out there that have had similar stories and have gone down the road I have without the crime, but still with the drugs, like.
But do you get that you're a precedent? Do you get that you're something that your life is something that can be shown to even practitioners as to how to deal with kids better? That you've gone down the fucking gauntlet. You've lived down that gauntlet. And a gauntlet, in my mind, is a narrow, dark path.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's coming from left, right, back, front, up, down. You don't know what fucking doing ever. You've gone down that gauntlet and you've paved the way now for practitioners that have studied you, and I'm sure they have, without doubt. I'm sure that there's psychiatrists out there that have gone, fucking hell.
I've recently been asked to provide my mental health history, like for my working with vulnerable children's card. And I had to put my argument forward first that it would be pointless in me forwarding everything, simply because if you take everything from when I was going to Ochre Rise at 6.5 years old, when I was struggling with my father coming home after school when I leave and he's fine, to coming home and he's curled up in a ball, vomit everywhere, and come back the next day and he's got bits cut off his face and, half his genitals are missing and all these things were happening. So I was getting treated in a child forensic clinic then, all the way up till now. If you take every report that I've been able to get my hands on, I'm sure there's more, and put them all together, you're left with nothing but a very conflicting, contradicting, unvaluable, or, it's pointless to try and accurately say what I do or don't have, because everyone contradicts each other. And over that 23 or 4 years, obviously there's been periods where things have been exacerbated by drug use, massive things of trauma, relapses, lapses where I am clean, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much, like, and yeah, like, I know what you're saying, but
you need to write a book, bro. Big time.
Yeah.
fucking big time. And that book needs to be given to psychologists. And they need to read that book. Do you get me?
Yeah, 100%.
Youth aren't going to pick up a book. Youth are going to pick up the phone and go to TikTok, right? You need to be talking on camera or voice or whatever, what you're talking now. And this is your first, I'm guessing this is your first long form chat.
Yeah, definitely.
On 3 fucking cameras.
Yeah.
And I'll send you some of the footage, right? And I'll break it up and I'll give it to you to put on your platforms. But you need to be on TikTok. Because this is where they are. Do you get it? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
This is where the youth are. They're on this stupid
social media
stuff that I use to get my story out there. I use it to inspire and motivate, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I know that I need to be on TikTok because that's where the eyeballs are.
Mm.
So I can give you some advice later on all of that and what to do and how to do it. But your life is a precedent for psychologists and psychiatrists to how to treat troubled kids, not teens, not adults, children.
Yeah.
Fuck. But so are you. Why don't you study psychology? I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing things out there now, but
yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, my daughter first, my music, book, and all that stuff second. And yeah, just helping children as best I can from that non-professional setting, in my opinion, is the only. Well, during my childhood,
I like that. Yeah.
They were the only people that I would connect with in any way. Anyone else come in there dressed in their fucking suits and with their fancy folders and their pen on, I just, look at this, someone get his wallet. Like, wouldn't give them time of day. Like,
yeah.
And the people that would come in there, you know, it was a cliche to us, the people that come in there covered in tattoos and try and fucking tell us, oh, you know, I could have went down that road. And we're looking at them thinking, you're 23, like, you still get your whole life out of you, buddy. Like, your missus will probably cheat on you next week and you know, like, don't tell me you could have gone down that road. You probably still could. Like, you haven't lived life yet. Like, and yeah, the only people that me and my friends ever really connected with are the ones that they cared, but they didn't care enough to go, like you said, into the psychology of it and that. They'd just basically be like, every child's different, every home setting's different. What, like I've had it said to me by specialists as well, this, like what one 10-year-old will respond to, his father dying of cancer, the next 10-year-old on a scale of 1 to 10, this 10-year-old will be a 3 in terms of grief, trauma, nightmares, can't readjust to new settings or his new lifestyle, can't adjust without the father. The next one, they'll be a 15. They'll go straight off the fucking rails. They're smoking dope and whacking up within 6 months. They're 12 years old. Like, it just, every child's different, like, and every human's different. We all react and respond at different levels of severity to everything, just everything. So, like, for me, that's why I would never speak to people that are qualified, because I know it's a cliche as well. They're all reading from the same book, you know what I mean? But they all bring their own approach, but they are all reading from the same book. Not specifically, but you know what I mean? Like,
gotcha.
The literature's identical, just in different formats and the specialists, they bring their own approach about how they direct that message and that information that they're trying to get you to, you know, take on board, and the coping mechanisms.
But your book needs to become literature.
Yeah.
I think psychologists need to read books from people like you.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I've written, I won't go into it, but literature's pretty much my thing. I've read 6 dictionaries back to front and taken out words that I like the meaning of, or even just how they're spelt if I don't like the meaning, just the look of it. Like, literature and words are my thing.
Which makes me think, you know, what would you have been if you didn't go down this path? But you know what? You went down that path and you've jumped off the path, and now you're on the path you should have been on all those fucking years ago.
I always wanted to be a soldier. That's all I ever wanted to be. Like,
that's your father, though, right?
Yeah, 100%. Not Navy, soldier, definitely.
Okay.
I kick doors in.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'd want. You know, I wouldn't want to be anywhere but on that first one through the door sort of shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
I live for that shit.
Yeah, yeah. My sister died 2013 from cancer.
So sorry
And
to
we
hear
watched
that, man. Yeah.
If your dad was here now, sitting here, and he wasn't speaking to you, he was just here, wasn't going to speak, just listen to you, what would you say to him?
I'm sorry.
Mm.
He never, in a million years, would have imagined I'd turn out the way I did.
But imagine he's watched it all. He's seen it. He's seen everything. Imagine he knows everything you've done and the stuff you've spoken about in depth, right? But he knows more than that. He knows the stuff that you've left out because he's seen it. Just imagine. I want you to imagine how I envisage death. You're sorry. You've got another few minutes before he goes back. What would you say?
That's a hard question. No, just I'm sorry, and I do not blame him dying for anything that happened once he died.
Yep.
In terms of where I went, what I done, and what happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I love you.
Yeah. You understand that you're amazing, right? You understand that you're a flicker of gold in amongst all that dirt, right?
Yeah, this is what I was saying earlier. Like, I probably didn't explain it as well earlier, but like the life I've just come from, Darran, like it was all, you know, everyone used to put me up on this fucking massive pedestal, like
for being that.
Being the worst thing on 2 legs, but still having a good heart. You know what I mean? Like, take no shit, back down from no one. Fucking, you threaten me, you're gone. Like, just all the wrong things. Just violence, organised crime, all the wrong things. Like, and I reflect back on that now, and like, it's weird, you know, I can put a post up about like 4 days ago, like being shattered that I've missed the best part of the last 10 years of my daughter's life. And these people that sat there telling me how I was the maddest cunt in the state and, you know, this, that, rah, rah, rah. They won't even like a post about me being sorry for missing me 10 years of my daughter's life. But I guarantee you, if I got back on the drugs tomorrow, they'll be there patting me on the back, telling me how crazy I am again. Like, I just have real trouble now gloating about my honest and positive success, if that makes sense. Like, as much as I want to be on my high horse about how many views my first song got and how I walked away from using drugs and, you know, how I'm there for my daughter now and this and that, I'm still really struggling with that. Like, I don't know why, because I know I'm not going to go back. I know I'm not going to go back to the drugs and the crime and that life, but I don't know. Can
I give you a tip?
100%.
When someone
take this jumper off, I'm sweating.
Fuck off, bro.
You got me sweating.
Go for it. I'll tell you what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this: when someone says that you're amazing and you've come from that life and you've fixed your life and now you want to help others fix their fucking life, you don't have to gloat. Just be grateful. Just say thank you. Do you see what I'm saying? You good for time?
Yeah, it's just vibrating. It's off. It's fine.
I find the same thing. People say to me, "Oh, you're such an inspiration. You've done all this awesome stuff," and I think to myself, "Well, it's only bodybuilding. It's only jiu-jitsu. It's only fighting. I haven't fucking created a drug to save lives. I haven't been a banker. I haven't whatever the hell. All I've done is whatever I wanted to do. There's bodybuilding and jiu-jitsu, and I'm the same, bro. I haven't been the best dad, you know. There's times where I haven't been a dad, you know. But it doesn't matter about the past. The past does not equal your future. And you are a testament to that. You are just, I can see you're uncomfortable, you know, but you don't have to be anymore. Just be grateful for whatever people say to you.
Yeah.
You know, I am. Yeah, I know you are.
It's just hard, you know.
It's must be hard, bro, because you have seen some shit's gone through your eyeballs into your brain that'll never leave you ever, regardless of what you do, psychology or whatever. But now it's important to show the world what's in there to prevent them thinking it's glorified.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's fucking not. How many friends have you got right now in prison?
Oh. It's hard, you know. Like I've got.
How many people do you know in prison?
Anyone that's worth knowing.
What's it like in prison? Let's finish up with this notion of like the glorification and fuck the glorification. What's it like in prison?
As with everything, prison is, you know, different for everyone. But like, it's not a nice place. Like, if you may think you've got friends in there, right?
Right.
But those friends don't run the prison. So, like, just because you've got a couple of mates in there doesn't mean when you get there, someone's not trying to make you force your partner to bring drugs in that you're going to traffic back to these people.
Right.
Like, having friends doesn't prevent that. If anything, they'll, you know, be saying how staunch you are and that you won't give them up if you get caught, and they'll be encouraging it. You know, like, your friends, it's different for everyone, but trust me when I say when you go to prison, people aren't interested in how far you went in school, what qualifications you got, whether you've got a license, whether you don't, whether you've got family. They don't care.
You're all sort of the same, right? Is that what you're saying?
Unless you're, you know, in that, unless you've grown up in that world and you know everyone, yeah.
But that's you, right?
That's me, yeah. But it's not like that for everyone.
Yeah. So what's it like? Like, I mean, I've sat in the Supreme Court, and I've had a screw next to me, and they get in the truck and they drive the truck over the thing. And my lawyer said to me, "Today you're either going to go in or you're not. It's 50-50." And I sat there, and the judge said, "Darran," and this is on the internet. Derek read it to me the other day, and it's like the judge sits there, and she's like, "Okay, trafficking steroids. You're an exemplary member of society, Darran. You do great things in the community, yada yada yada. But I've got to make an example, and I'm giving you 1 year prison." Then she stopped talking, and I started sweating. I'm like, "Fuck, that's that." She took a breath, and then she said, "Wholly suspended." I look at my lawyer. I don't know. I'm lost. Is this a game? What the fuck's going on? Is this real? My mate was in the back, had my car keys. He was going to take my car off the car park, and I'd be going to the jail. And so I never got to go in that truck with the white that people see driving through the city. That white truck with those doors, 3 doors on each side.
Yeah,
and that's an individual cell. That's the start of your cell.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is it like to be in the Supreme Court? You walk. You've been given a prison sentence. What happens? So you're sitting in that booth. They cuff you right there and then. Is that how it works?
Generally speaking.
Give me a raw look through going to prison.
when I have been to the Supreme Court down here actually, but in Launceston, when you go to court as a free person, you walk through the metal detectors and everything like normal.
So you must have seen people go through prison, like you go through court. So you were in court, you've been there, done it all. You know where you're going, where you're headed. But you must see the fear in people, and you must.
Oh yeah, people don't like being in court. That's for sure.
Right, but you're used to it. You're just, I'm here.
I was considered institutionalised
Gotcha.
at 14 years old, so just because of the time I'd spend out, due to the time I'd spend in, which was very short periods out, longer periods in. Yeah, but
you're in court. You've been given your sentence. What happens?
You'll either, if you're a free man getting a sentence, you'll be in the dock for the public, which you come in and out from the waiting bit. If you're in custody, you'll be sitting in the secure dock to the right or the left of the magistrate or judge. As soon as you're given a sentence, regardless of where you're standing, you'll be cuffed and then removed straight into the area where they can take you out the back. And then in Hobart, you go down a few flights of stairs into the cells. It's just like a little small prison, basically. Heap of cells downstairs.
Bars,
steel toilet, steel seats, nothing really that you can break or anything like that. Cameras in the cells.
And you've been in there. Have you seen free people being sentenced? You've been across from free people?
People coming in off the street.
First time?
Yep. Hundreds of them.
And what are they, what, give me a sense of what they look like.
Most people are just pale white, either pacing or sitting, and just they don't say anything. They won't speak to anyone because obviously if they don't know no one.
So then you'll know straight away.
Yeah. And they just won't say anything. And you just watch them chewing their nails, doing all the,
Have you ever reached out and said, hey,
rubbing the head.
Relax.
Oh, I get, my friends hang shit on me for being so friendly when I'm so who I really am.
Notorious,
Yeah. But that's simply because, I see through that sort of thing. Like you don't know just because they're not talking and they're scared to go to jail and all this, that doesn't mean they're not good people. That doesn't mean they don't have family and children just like us. It doesn't mean, on any scale, for all we know, they could have fucking 100 firearms buried outside. If you don't give them the chance to speak without standing over them or trying to bully them, they're not going to tell you, are they? Being mean to people's all good and well, but it'll never get you as far as being nice. That's a guarantee. They're only ever going to open up and tell you about so much if you're being mean to them. You know what I mean? Being nice is a much better way to build a relationship with someone and get to know them. If you're just defensive and straight on the I don't trust you caper, you don't stand a chance. You know what I mean?
Then what happens?
Basically, you wait for the bus. You could be sitting there for 30 minutes. You could be sitting there for 4 hours.
You've no idea.
No idea. It just really depends on the courts, how many people have got caught, coming to court, going to court. And, basically once you get to the prison, so generally speaking, if you don't know anyone, they'll put you in one of the rooms on your own to take you to the prison. Most of them have 2 seats in them. Well, the new buses do anyway. You'll get to the prison. Doesn't really matter. You could be the first off, you could be the last off. It doesn't really matter. Once you get in, everyone that's was already in prison going to court, they'll just be processed and straight out of the building. People for their first times in will get held back. They'll be asked a range of questions from, do you have any enemies? Whether they were enemies in school, are they enemies now? Can you name any of your enemies if you think or believe you have any? Do you know if any of your enemies are in prison? When was your last health checkup? Do you have AIDS, hepatitis C, all these sorts of things? Are you affiliated with gangs, outlaw motorcycle gangs, prison gangs, any gang? They'll give you the rundown on all the do's and don'ts. They basically tell you don't gamble on cards or any game at all. Don't tick drugs or take anything for free off anyone, especially if you don't know them. Yeah.
Your clothes, you walk in with your civilian clothes.
Yeah.
At what point are they switched over?
Before you leave that building.
Right.
And they all just get marked down, put in a box, and then put in like these massive big things where they keep everyone's personal possessions.
And you get that. You get your stuff when you're out.
Yep.
And then you go in and you go, it's right here, right? Here's the prison, and we'll get to this in a second.
Yep.
So I'm looking at a photograph of the prison there, and I bet you know every wing and what they're called, etc.
Yeah.
And there's barbed wire fence. So you go, I've been in there a couple of times, visited a few mates. And you go in, the gates open, and then from the processing point in your prison clothing, they ask the questions. Then what happens?
Generally, before you, like if you've come from Magistrates Court, Supreme Court, Launceston, Devonport, doesn't matter. Once your charges are established, like what you will be remanded in custody for, if you haven't been to prison before, they'll run a tier, I think it's called a tier 2 assessment, where basically they determine your risk factor and what level of security you should be housed in.
Right.
It's a shit system really, because you know someone like me can go to jail for, it wouldn't matter, like if I got locked up tomorrow after being out for nearly 2 years and having spent the last 13 months of me last sentence on good behaviour, I could go in there for jaywalking, I'm still going straight to super maximum, and I'll be stuck there for months. When anyone else, they'd just go straight to medium, straight to minimum. I don't know why they do it.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. But basically your housing is determined on your crimes.
Plus what your record, your
if you've
paperwork.
If you've been there before.
Yeah. And obviously they know you by name, sight.
100%.
They could probably hear you coming.
Yeah.
So then what happens? You go to a cell.
Depends what time of the day it is. So in the jail between 12 and 1, the whole jail's locked down. It might be 11:30 to 12:30 or 11:30 to 1 now.
Midday sort of lockdown.
Yeah. So lunch for the officers and inmates to be locked away in segregation, solitary, maximum and super maximum. You're locked into cells, and then in medium and minimum, you're locked into divisions. So like you've still got access to your dining room, your bathrooms, all that sort of stuff. But in all the other parts, you're locked in a cell for an hour and a half.
So if you go in, if you're coming in as a new inmate, and between those hours, you'll go to a cell, the one you've been assigned to.
Anytime. Well, you'll only come after 9 or 10 in the morning, and you can come anytime between, let's say,
9 and 5.
Oh, sometimes you get there at 8 o'clock at night because court drags on sometimes, like especially bail hearings and things like that. Like you may finish court at 2:15, like a reasonable time, and there could be 5 more people before you to go to court. And if they even presume that one of those 5 people are going to end up getting remanded, they'll keep the prison bus there until all the court's finished so that they don't have to go back and come backwards and forwards.
Right. So you're at the mercy of whoever's going next.
Yep. That's fucked. Trust me. Maybe not to the first timers because they don't understand, but when you know you're sitting there just on a chance luck that someone may go to jail off that court list, it's fucking annoying.
You got your phone on you and you...
Nah. You got nothing.
Nothing. That's the thing, especially as the years go on and the technology and the Facebooks and the stuff, like people, to have nothing.
Yeah.
Should be a deterrent in and of itself to some people.
You'd think so, but...
There you go. You're over there. You're through the gates. You've done all this. And you're put in a cell. Either it's minimum, medium.
Now they've got minimum low, minimum medium, I think, and minimum normal. They're just different levels of security within the same facility.
Right.
Yeah. Then you've got medium, maximum, super maximum, segregation, solitary.
I'm skipping ahead here. You been to solitary?
Yep.
That's a yes.
Yeah.
What's that all about? What happens there?
Why did I go there? Or why?
Yes and no. Yeah, of course. But I'm just trying to get a sense of prison itself from someone who's lived it.
Yeah.
Solitary. It is what I think it is. It's the movies. It's
Yeah, definitely. That's fucked.
Is it dark or what is it?
No, you've got a light and shit. Radio on your wall.
That's fixed to the wall, obviously, in some way.
Just 2 volume buttons and an on-off button.
So what's the radio? What do you have access to there? Like HO or how does that all work?
I think it's 90.1, is it down here? Or
so there's something
101.7 and 10.
So you got access to some sort of
you can. The power button turns it on and also gives you the 2 channels. So if you press it once, it's on. Press it twice, it'll go to the second channel. Press it a third time, it'll turn it off.
Right.
Press it again, it'll be that first channel. Press the second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then up or down volume.
So what's the longest you've been in there? Into solitary?
I've done 45 days, I think, when I first went to the jail, like after the riot in the remand centre. I ended up smashing my cell up in super maximum purely because I wasn't charged with rioting in the remand centre, so I didn't see why I was being punished for the riot.
Yep.
Even though I broke out of my cell, that didn't mean that I took part in the riot. But yeah.
45 days?
Well, I got sentenced to 90, but yeah.
Half. And what the hell? Like sitting in there with what? You got a pillow and a blanket or what?
You got a mattress, a horse blanket and a pillow. And back then you're allowed to have 1 book at a time, 6 or 4 pieces of paper and a pencil about that big.
So I couldn't.
Yeah.
So you can't drive it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think of right now when you think of that experience? Because most people, right, wouldn't be able to handle sitting in there. If you say to someone, sit in your bathroom for the day, shut the door, sit in the bathroom.
Yeah, no.
No phone,
it's not
no
a nice experience.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it was horrible.
The worst sort of conditions of jail?
No, to be honest, some people have it worse in the mainstream environments just because of the way, like everything we've talked about, being bullied, stood over, sexual abuse, physical abuse.
So sometimes it can be a getaway. It can be some sort of exclusion
definitely.
for someone.
People, I missed out Mersey, which is what they call CSU, Crisis Support Unit. It holds about 30 people. So that's where Martin Bryan is. That's where a lot of the notorious sex offenders are. Not all of them. Far from all of them, actually. But
I've heard it. Is it like a hospital situation sort of setup? Or what is it?
It's identical to the unit right beside it, which is super maximum for mainstream or protection inmates. But it's just ran like that. Everyone that's in there is basically referred to as a window licker. Like they're just off their heads. They're all highly medicated. Talk to themselves, walk around.
Yeah. And that's what Martin Bryan is, apparently.
Yeah, he doesn't speak much. No.
So someone's going to jail first time. They're into what do you generally, as a new inmate, what do you generally put in there as minimum?
It really depends on your charges.
The charge.
Yeah. But having said that, mainstream maximum and protection maximum only hold a few more now because I know they built bunk beds due to the overcrowding in the prison, but for the last 12 years, they've only held 26 inmates each. And then you go from Darran A and Darran B to Huon and Mersey, which are another 2 buildings beside each other. They only hold 18 each. And then you've got segregation, which only holds 8. Solitary only holds 4. Oh, we missed out.
Another wing, is it? Another?
Yeah, it's the drug rehab one they built, but they've turned that into something else now.
Okay.
It's basically just another unit, but that only held 6 or 8 as well. And then medium holds 190 or something like that, 180, 190.
What's it like at night?
Where?
In medium minimum.
I've never been to minimum, never stepped foot in there.
What's it like at night in your experience of where you've been? In give me an example, like maximum.
Just fucking cunts yelling and screaming all night, sending fishing lines up and down the hallways, passing contraband shit. Like, it's all year, all night.
You can't sleep, or
you can sleep, but
because you're exhausted or whatever.
Yeah, and you just get used to it. You know what I mean? When you got people.
You're talking about yelling in distress, like, or
no, just talking to each other.
Shit.
Yeah, like there's no other way to communicate, so you got to yell it under your door. You know what I mean? Like, it's just loud all the time.
The prison officers just let it go, just listen. And
no one's there overnight. You're all locked away. You got a duress button in your cell, so.
Oh, there's no one on site. There's not a prison officer on site.
Not in the building, no.
There'd be someone somewhere around.
Yeah.
To come, but
up in the main
you can
controls
say whatever you
and
want.
stuff.
No one will hear anything.
Having said that, these intercoms are, they're designed to be able to listen in on and stuff as well. So
Gotcha.
Everyone's conscious of the fact whatever you say, there's every chance they're going to hear it.
Have you ever experienced, and you haven't been a minimum obviously, but have you ever experienced someone yelling out in distress? It's their first time in jail and they're,
Oh, Darran,
is that part of it?
some, like it's not something I'd ever do or support, but some people take pleasure in mentally breaking people to the point where they want to take their own lives their first night there, like they're getting on the intercom saying, I can't do this anymore, I need to get out of here, like I'm going to kill myself. And little do they realise it's the worst thing they could do because then they're put into fish tank, they're given nightgowns, like then they're treated like they're fucking nuts, you know.
Fish tank?
Fish tank, yeah. It's either a glass or plastic or concrete cell where there's nothing in it for you to hurt yourself with.
Gotcha.
And you're cameraed wherever you look. You're not allowed to have anything, books, nothing. Like, it's the worst thing you could possibly do. Is say you're going to harm yourself.
Right. Man, let's finish up with this. What advice would you have for I want a few things from you. What advice would you have if you could talk to every 9-year-old, young man and woman, if you could get a message out to every 9 and 10-year-old, if every school played a message from you to be told to them, and you're talking to the good kids and the kids that are on the cusp, what would you say? Every 9 and 10-year-old.
It's a hard one, but like it's a bit of a cliche, but as long as these children aren't being abused within their family home, they should always remember that family are always going to care for you more than anyone else. It's not like you can just walk down the street and meet a foster carer and they're going to love you like your parents or your uncles or your aunties or your cousins or your brothers. Like, your family home may not be ideal, but you need to be aware that you don't know where you're going or what you're going to be left with to deal with if you do things that are going to have you removed from your family home. You may not find it comforting, you may not find it ideal, but it's home, and as long as you're not being abused physically, mentally, or in any other bad way, my advice is that you listen to your parents, stay in school, find something that you love and enjoy doing, do it regularly, and just don't do the wrong thing, and stay off drugs. Like, drugs are the last thing that a child needs. Like, Your brain hasn't even developed yet. I myself had a brain scan after I was tasered in the head in prison, and I was told that I had a brain the size of a 14-year-old child due to systemic drug abuse at such a young age. And, although I don't feel like it's impacted me all that much in terms of my intellect and so forth, that doesn't mean it hasn't and that it won't long term. Just stay in school, find something you love, and don't do drugs.
I love that, man. Because it's not all about family and school, right? There's got to be some passion there.
Yeah.
You got to find music, basketball, footy, handball,
girls,
whatever. Yeah, just hobbies. What about? And I'll come to this next. Give me some advice on this. What advice would you give to a 25 or 30-year-old that wants to get out of this criminal lifestyle but thinks it's impossible? They're stuck.
I've got a really easy answer for that because I experienced it. You need to understand that when you touched on it earlier about our culture of, don't boast, don't brag, don't toot your own horn. We also have a really bad culture of your best mate will tell you to pull your head in when you say you're going to become a rapper. Because I had it said to me 1,000 times by my 10 closest mates for 15 years. It wasn't until I met Greeley and had someone actually tell me that my lyrics were good and that I just needed to practice and all this stuff that I actually had one single person tell me that I could do it and believe in me. The 10 most important people in my life laughed at me and told me to snap out of it, saying shit like, "Oh, do you think you're Eminem? Ha, ha, ha." Just taking the piss out of me. And that was so unhelpful and unhealthy because it crushed the dream every time I even mentioned it. At that age, in order to change your life, if that's what you want, if you even think that's what you want, the quickest way to establish, the people that you need around you and the support networks that you need in place is to bring that up, is to say to the people that you think matter most to you that you don't want to use drugs anymore, that you don't want to do crime anymore, and see what their response is. And if you need to use the people, because you will have it happen to you, people that you expect to say, "Oh, I'm really glad for you, mate, and, if there's anything I can do, rah, rah." But the reality is these people will turn around and laugh in your face like they think you're a joke, like you're not serious. I've had it happen to me.
Same.
And you need to use that. I know it is crushing, it's hurtful, and don't bridge up and think that laughing with them and all the rest of it's helpful, because it's not. Then you're just reinforcing what they've just reinforced, and that is your disbelief within yourself and your lack of confidence. You need to be right, if you don't think I can do it, I'm going to do it just to prove you wrong, let alone anyone else. You're meant to support me, you know what I mean?
Fuck yeah.
It is a culture that's the hardest thing. Don't wipe these people from your life because you think they don't care about you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have a really bad culture of putting each other down and shitting on each other's dreams with jokes and little slurs and things. But, when you really want something, you need to establish who the people are around you that can help you the most and support you, not only verbally, but physically, emotionally, financially, and any other way they can help. It's not about getting a handout or using people to get where you want. It's about building that life that you're dreaming of. You can repay these people that help you once you get there. There's no need to feel like you're bumming off them or you're using them, because at the end of the day, they're willing to help you. They're there to help you. And once you do what you want to accomplish, then you'll be able to thank them,
Yeah, man.
I could not be sitting here without the help of a lot of people that, I'd like to touch base on before we finish. And, I just, I owe just as much to them as I owe to myself for the commitment and the belief and the reinforcing that I can do it if I just stick it out. There is days where I just go, fuck it, I'm not writing like this anymore. I'd rather just say it how it is. But then, like I said earlier, it all comes back that I don't want that to be the reflection of my life. I'm trying to fix the damage I've done over the last 22 years, not glorify it or make it seem like it was worth it, because it fucking wasn't. Like, I could have done so much more if I'd have stuck with my dreams back then, but I just didn't have the things in place to make it happen, or the people. Like,
that's where it's at, man. I mean, that's pretty spot on. It's coming from you. That's all we need to hear.
Yeah.
Tell me about Greeley.
Andrew Greeley.
He's the reason why you're sitting here.
Oh, 100%.
Even in my podcast.
Yeah.
He banged on to me about you. He's one of your supporters, man.
He's one of the best men I've ever met. Like,
and I'm holding in my hand his album, Risdon Wisdom.
Get on it, everybody. Listen to it, share it, go buy one. You won't hear more empowering words, like from someone who had to experience prison to be able to, take control of his own life again and be like, right, like, music is my life. And like, he's changed so many lives with music, like mine included. Like, and
how did you guys get to be? What happened?
He was locked up after the incident that sent him to prison, not once but twice, after they appealed his sentence. And I was a bit starstruck to start with. Like, I didn't exactly know who he was. I knew he was a rapper, but I didn't know how well known he was or how good he was, because I'd always refused to listen to Aussie rap. And when a couple of the boys that did know him from the outside and had grown up with him, basically said to him that, I write raps and I write this and that. And he approached me and basically just introduced himself, and we kicked it off from there. Like, just spoke for a few days. It took me a while to be able to say, oh, can I show you me raps? Like, because I was just scared. Like, once again, even with my raps, my own friends would tell me, oh, fuck, man, that sounds wicked, but you'll never be a rapper, and then get up and walk off. Tell me it's wicked in one hand and then tell me it's never going to happen in the other. Like, it just so it took me a while to sort of build the confidence up to show him. And like, he just really supported me and said, like, he basically said in funny terms, you're fucking hopeless, you need some practice. He goes, but you've got good lyrics. Like, he goes, you can actually write, man. Like,
but that's what you needed, just that one spark.
That's what I mean. Like, with the whole,
and he was honest.
Yes, that's what I mean. With these,
gave you what you needed.
And that's what these other friends of mine were doing. Oh, yeah, good lyrics, but you'll never make it. But he's going, yeah, good lyrics, you're a crap rapper, but you just need practice. You know, like, it's not just black and white, like, it's black, white, white.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
interesting.
So it just, it made it really easy for me to connect with him, because he's one of the most selfless people I've ever met. Like, he speaks so, he's not one of these people that'll tell you something and then you see him 3 days later and he's forgotten that he's even said it because it meant nothing to him. He'll remember. Like, he'll actually remember. And, we just really kicked it off. Like, we spent almost every day together after that. Like, and, he taught me everything about rap that I know now. And, I couldn't be more grateful to him. Like, we've seen very little of each other since we've been out of prison, just due to, him with his own music, his own life.
I think he's in lockdown right now.
He's back now, in quarantine,
Quarantine,
And, it doesn't change anything for me, just because I haven't seen him. We still speak on the phone quite regularly, and he's my manager. Like, and I've said to him, no matter what happens, he will always be my manager. Like, I would never let someone get in my ear and try and tell me anything. And even if I did let him get in my ear, I'm only going to go and repeat it to him. Like, I'm not going to go, oh, what can I do with this? Like,
You've got a real bond.
Yeah, 100%. I'd never, like, I couldn't care less if I become internationally famous overnight. He'd be right there beside me all the way till the end of time, because I wouldn't be here without him. Like, that one chance meeting in prison changed my life. Like, I'd like to sit here and say that it was my daughter and all the rest of it, but it wasn't. My daughter was 8 years old when I met Greeley, like, and it hadn't changed my life. And as sad as that makes me feel, and as bad as it makes me look, you just got to understand, like, Lily wasn't able to change my life. As much as I love her and she's my daughter and my blood and she's perfect to me, it's just, I didn't feel like I was ever going to be a good father, like, until I met Greeley. Like, he helped me realise a lot of things about my life, like, not just the music, just everything. Like, you know, the fact that I had so many negative, unsupporting, critical people in my life that loved me. That was the first thing. They love you to death, Caine, but they're not the people that you need to get past, you know, everything that's happened in your life. It's just, and that's a hard realisation. Like, and trust me, it's not something just anyone could have come along and said, because most people I would have just been like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, who are you talking about? My friends, like, they sit there and put me down every day, but I would never, you know, it's in a joking way. So I would never let someone just come along and go, fuck, Caine, like, you know, I know such and such is a good bloke, but he's not really who you need in your life right now. Like, if you want to get out and do this music thing, you need to, you know, probably push him aside until you get there so that you can show him that you could do it and rub it in his face and then say, told ya. And yeah, just, he's a weird one, you know, like, he's my age and he's lived such an eventful life. Like, and it makes me jealous. Like, I think, fuck, I could have done all this, like, and now you're helping, you know, like, he's still got his whole life ahead of him. He's already had such an amazing life, but yet he still takes the time out to help everyone else when he could just be selfish and go, no, fuck it. I'm just me. But he doesn't. Like, he does that by choice. It's not that he cares how people look at him, because he doesn't. He knows he's a good person. He knows he's got a good heart, and he knows how anyone that knows him views him. So everything he does, it just comes instinctively, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what I respect about him. Like, I don't know. I couldn't imagine my life without him in it. Although, like I've said, we don't see much of each other. That's not the point. I can ring him anytime I want to. And it's not like I have to say, oh, I'm having a fucking identity crisis. He'll just go, so what's been going on, mate? And I'll tell him, and he'll be like, you just keep your eyes on the prize, Caine. Like, first album, you've released your first song, you know, you're doing better with Lily than you've ever done. Don't let anyone take that away from you, especially you. You know what I mean? Like, always reinforcing that I'm in control. Like,
fuck, that's important.
Oh, like, I'm so used to having people around me that are coming to me with their problems and trying to make me sort their shit out, you know what I mean? Never once would someone say to me, like my friends, because I was always the fucking problem fixer. Like, if something went wrong in their life, I'd fix it. If something went wrong in my life, they'd be like, oh, no way. Like, you know, fuck. You know, like, it just, he's given me so much self-belief. Like, I wish you know, I've got a lot more confidence than I used to have with the music stuff, because I'd mumble rap under my breath. Like, I would not even try to rap. Like, and he's like, you're reading it like poetry. Speak up. Like, and that's just how I used to write it. So, but yeah, as you can probably tell, it's the most I've smiled since we've been on this thing. Like, he's changed my life, man. And like, I try not to badger him too much with the love you, brother. Fucking couldn't have done it without your shit, because I know he, you know, he's got a life and he's a busy man, and I'm 32 as well, so it's probably a bit gay, but I just, you know, I couldn't have done it without him. Like, and it just blows my mind that I met him in fucking prison, where most of my problems started and ended when I met him. Like, it's not something that you hear every day. Like,
but it's still your choice. You could have met him and just palmed it off and said, I'm not good enough, and you still made the effort, and you're still making the effort.
Yeah.
And this is what people, I think, need to know. People can come into your life and offer you opportunities and tell you how great you are, but
you've still got to take it.
Have to take it.
Yeah.
And you're taking it, man. So what's it all about? What's the song? What's the album? Tell me about what you're up to.
The album's done. So the first song we released off the album is called Ruthless Northerner. We put that on YouTube. That's at, I think, 75,000 views at the moment.
We'll link it below, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Which is, yeah, you know, I'm extremely happy with it. I'm not saying I'm not. I think Greeley and Lockie Hamill, the people that have helped me, Max Bladel, people that helped me with that song are far more happier than I am, because they understand how well it done, whereas I don't. You know, I'm like, I'm like 75,000. I was more thinking 750,000, but anyway, and they're just like snap out of it. Like it done amazing. But yeah, the album's done. So we've done seven songs and one poem with me and my daughter reading the poem backwards and forwards to each other. The album will be called the Ruthless Northerner album, along with one of the songs being called Ruthless Northerner. The songs, there's Ruled. I need to be clear on that. Ruled, not rule. Ruled these streets. Scars to match. Rotten in hell. Mother never loved me. Addicted. Ruthless Northerner. And the poem with me and my daughter. So that's the songs off the album. Yeah, it was an amazing process. Like it did drain me a lot, like doing it all, because it's all new to me. Like being in front of cameras, microphones. I didn't understand how any of it worked. I still struggle to rap on beat, and I can't just put a beat on and then just write raps to it and rap it perfectly. Like I'm still growing and learning every day. Like, yeah, I've got a few logos that have been done that I'm going to be naturally making, like pre-order packs and things like that. Once the album's released, we're hoping to have it all out. Well, we will have it all out by the end of the year. We were aiming a bit earlier than that, but just with everything, there's so many of us. Like there's myself, Greeley, Lockie Hamill, Cortex, who is another rapper from Western Australia who done all the filming. Lockie Hamill from down here in Hobart has done all the beats, mixing, mastering and editing. Greeley being my manager and teaching me how to write proper rhyme schemes, how to write bars, how to do multis, all these things. Like it's a team effort, like I never would have had my first album after being out of prison for 18 months if it wasn't for those three men right there. Like that's just guaranteed.
You going to come back on when you've released it with Greeley?
100%, man.
How about we put you there and we'll put Greeley there and we'll just shoot the shit?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah? When's it out?
We're hoping around the end of October, middle of November.
Oh, that's cool.
But definitely before the end of the year. I don't want to put a date on it because I've done that twice now and I've had to change it.
Sure.
But that's just the way it is.
Who do you want to thank, man?
I want to thank yourself and Derek for getting me on here today.
Pleasure.
I want to thank Greeley, Lockie, Cortex, Damon and Brody Scott, my daughter Lily, Bianca, which is my daughter's mother, Jeremy Strang, he's a friend in Western Australia that's helping me financially with getting the album done and stuff. Yeah. There's plenty more, but I'll be here all day.
It is what it is, man. It's perfect.
Yeah. Everyone that's helped me knows that I love and respect everything they've done for me to help me get to this point. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know, man. I got to say, like, I didn't know what you were like. I still guess I don't. We've known each other for a couple of hours. But if you don't get your book out there and your music out there, then all of what you've done will be for nothing.
Yeah, I totally agree and I understand that.
You're focusing on your daughter. You realise what you missed out on, the feelings and etc. And you're moving forward. You're an absolute inspiration to me, Derek, and anyone who listens to this.
Thanks, man.
Honestly, you should be, without a shadow of any doubt, dead. I often say, dead or in jail, but we've fucking been there. We've been through your journey of prison. You certainly should be dead. I know people that have lived lesser lives than you that are dead. And now you're living the rest of your life as the best of your life.
100%.
And you've got your life ahead of you. You keep saying that about other people, but you do too. You're 32, man. You're a baby.
Yeah, I know.
You're a baby who's lived a fucking traumatic, full-blown, hardcore life, of which we haven't even spoke about some of the stuff today, right?
Oh, we haven't even touched base, mate.
No.
But that's fine.
We're here to have a chat. We've chatted, and hopefully your message gets across to someone to not go down that path. I invite you back on. I want you to come back on with Greeley when the album comes out, and we'll go back and forth. We'll spit some.
Fuck yeah.
You got something for me today? Got some lines for me?
I don't think I'm allowed to drop any of the lines off the album.
At the Derek Hickman, we've been denied some lines off the album. When it comes out, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Come on, bring the music, pass me some songs, I'll put them up on the podcast, etc.
Yeah, mad. That'd be awesome.
I'm proud of you, bro.
Thanks, man.
I'm a 40-year-old man that could have gone down your path but didn't. And I'm sitting here saying that you are absolutely inspirational.
Thanks, man.
You are one of the most inspirational people I've ever had on this podcast. And you know who else is one of them?
I really appreciate that, man.
Greeley.
Yeah, he's by far the most, actually. Wayne and Sean Howard have been a big part of my life in terms of helping me stay on the right track and inspire me to stay clean. Sport.
I wasn't sure if you were going to bring them up.
Yeah,
right?
I did neglect to bring that up.
I wasn't sure if you were going to bring them up. They helped me, bro.
Yeah, I've spoken to Wayne just recently, and he mentioned that. Yeah,
they gave me a gym to train at, and I didn't. I just went along. I did my work. The hardest workout I ever did was with Sean Howard, and we did a squat routine, and we put 60 kilo on the bar. We just squatted 500 reps, first person there. We couldn't walk for 2 weeks.
I don't reckon.
You know, I know what they're all about. They're good people that have had, again, a very extreme traumatic life.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that Wayne, especially Sean, I haven't touched base with Sean in a little while. He's in the fitness.
He's in the shape of his life, man.
Look, it's so polarizing. Just yourself and Wayne and Sean. You're so polarizing. It's hard for the general public to understand. It's hard for the general public to love you guys. It's easy for the general public to not love you guys. But now it's up to you guys to prove it.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing it.
Wayne and Sean were also kind enough to be a part of the album, so that'll be exciting when it comes out.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. We're done.
No worries, man.
You're awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Keep going. Never
I really
give up.
appreciate you getting me on here today. As you've said repeatedly, that is the one thing, I don't mind having not touched base on the crime stuff because that's really not my forte, to be honest. But making sure that people don't follow in my footsteps and think that anything I've done beyond before 2019, other than having my beautiful daughter, was worthy of me or anyone else, because it wasn't. They were all actions that I wish I could take back every day of my life from here on in.
We get your message loud and clear.
Thanks.
Done.